In 1989, when the Berlin Wall fell, we pretended to be there. In 1963, when Martin Luther King Jr. marched for freedom, we pretended to be there. Throughout history, in good times and bad, times of turmoil and strife, joy and victory, we have always pretended to be by your side. Social Distancing Variety Hour. Pretending to be there for you. Paid for by friends of Social Distancing Variety Hour.
Social Distancing Variety Hour. We're real slow tonight because my voice is real slow tonight.
Hey.
Hi, I'm Adam.
And I am Garrett.
And we are pretending to be here for you yet again this week. So that was...
just like certain county executive candidates.
Just like certain people we want.
Pretending
to be there
with their constituents.
For you.
For you.
And you.
And you. And that other person out there.
Not you.
Not that one.
So
that was fun.
Yeah, that was a fun little thing.
A little project.
Yeah, a little bit of
Paid for by friends at Social Distancing Hour.
Bit of shenanigans.
Like our new Patreon.
Oh yes, support the show. Point down below yourself, Mr. Skindell. Down there, you can support the show at patreon.com/SDVH. And somebody who decided to do that this week, bless her heart, is our dear friend Rebecca Styn of Room 33. The Rebecca Styn of Room 33. And the Erie Reader and many other fine establishments. You were remembering the name of her other venture, Blind Tiger, which is the
non-alcoholic.
I was gonna say vegan cocktails, but that's not it. Yes, the non-alcoholic.
No, I don't think it's vegan. I don't think it's vegan, but it could be. I don't know. Maybe we'll have to have her on the show in a couple of weeks and ask her herself.
Yeah, that would be fun. She would be an interesting person to have on the show.
Yes,
for sure.
Line of non-alcoholic drinks. She runs Room 33. Is a fine former keyboard player of the Killerinas, local Erie.
Oh, that's right. I always forget about her being in the Killerinas. Somewhere back here, you talk to the people. Well, I go find it because that's the way we do things on this show.
Yes.
Somewhere back here.
Former keyboard player of the Killerinas, famous all-female. Well, except for when they had Eric Milner as the drummer, but female local group that just tore up the Erie scene back in the day, back when I was still playing in bands. That's a really flattering shot there, Adam. Just saying. But yes, so thank you very much to Rebecca Styn.
Oh, I've ruined my story. My story was somewhere back here. Is a guitar strap that has all my buttons on it from the days of the Killerinas. And this empty spot right here is where my Killerinas button used to be.
Where the Killerinas button used to be?
Yeah, there's an old Basement Transmissions button on there from the label days of Basement Transmissions. There's a Telephonics button on there.
Mm-hmm.
A number of other bands from the early to mid 2000s, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah, there used to be one of those shiny silver Killerinas buttons right there on that guitar strap. And goddamn,
they were fun. They were a super fun band. Played on many a bill with them. Back when I was playing with Hello Kitty Death Squad, played with the Killerinas many times.
Yeah, and back when I was in a band with Matt Texter back in those days.
Yes.
Called the Moralists. It was sort of like an alt country kind of thing.
Oh yes.
And we played I don't know if we actually played any shows with the Killerinas, but we played shows with the Telephonics. We played shows with Dirt McGirt, and all the later incarnations of the Black Rose Diary kids and all of that stuff. So yeah, that was kind of
good, clean fun, man. Good, clean fun from back in the early 2000s.
Good,
We just
clean
jumped in
fun
the
is a
social
disgusting
distancing
beer mug.
variety hour time machine and went back in time thanks to
Rebecca Styn. So shout out to Rebecca Styn.
Thank you, Rebecca Styn.
How was your week?
My week was very long. It was very long and cold and wet. It was a very long, cold, wet weekend.
Yeah.
Had a couple of soccer games that the team played, and we played really well.
Oh yeah, we were talking about that when we were
very cold and very wet.
When we were at our undisclosed location the other day, doing undisclosed things.
Exactly.
Yeah,
with the social distancing variety hour super PAC friends of social distancing variety.
Social distancing, right? You too can be a friend of the social distancing variety hour. Be our friend. Hi, Violet. Hi, Addie. It's nice to see friends in the chat. Check in the chat if you're watching. We will see it and we will say your name.
Yes.
Yeah, I've been feeling like crap this week. The first year of quarantines, I did not catch anything. Like, I was healthy. I didn't get, the little stomach bugs. I did not get the little snot incidents. I did not get, sinus infections. I didn't get shit. And then, the last 2 or 3 weeks, the kids have been back to school. The petri dishes have been reactivated. Yes. And Oscar gave me a stomach bug 2 or 3 weeks ago, which is why we ended up canceling the show that week. Which that week that I was puking my guts out on Sunday night was the week that we were supposed to have tonight's guests, Tom Spagel and Sydney Zimmermann. So thankfully, we were able to get them back, and they will be here. Which is,
and neither of them has a stomach bug, so
not that I know of.
At least not as far as we can tell right now. Neither of them.
Right. So I got over that. And then Una, middle kiddo, came down with some sort of cold upper respiratory.
It's I've been having the same thing happen.
Upper respiratory situation, and I managed to get that too. So, been sneezing and coughing and assuring everybody that no, this is just the regular kind of cold.
I'm cool, man. It's cool.
No,
it's cool.
Yeah, I'm
vaccinated. It's cool.
I'm fully microchipped. It is. It's not that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I'm kind of surprised. I've been relatively healthy here, even though I've been out in the cold and wet and rain. And regular for these past week,
and directly exposed to children, both your own and others.
Well, yes, that always helps. But
so does it make your immune system better, or does it make your immune system worse that you're constantly surrounded by children?
I would assume it's. I mean, if I had some weaknesses, I assume that it would expose those weaknesses. But luckily, I have a pretty strong metabolism, and I'm, it's never really been. I don't really take sick days very often because I don't really
That's good.
Get sick too much.
Yeah, I mostly don't either, but a friend of mine. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and they were sort of speculating that the fact that we've all been in our bubbles for a year, we're used to fending off things, and we've got our resistances built up to the little slings and arrows. And have we weakened our own immune systems
for a year? I don't know if that's it, or if it's just the fact that we're all out and we're yay, it's spring, we're outside, and spring today was 40 degrees and rainy.
Yeah, I saw snow today. It was.
I think it's more of the fact that people are going out when it's, are outside, not bundled up like they would be if it was January.
Right.
but still having January-ish temperatures. But, you know, or some sort of combination of the both.
Yeah,
You know,
something like that.
I don't think it's necessarily
Happy
that we've
Mother's
all
Day, by the
well,
way, to all our mom friends, and happy Mother's Day to the mother of your lovely children. Um,
yes. Happy
um,
Mother's Day, moms out there.
yeah. Thank you for spending it with us.
I stopped by
Um,
my mom's today and dropped off some tulips and a little some plants and stuff like that. My mom's a big into gardening now that she's retired.
well, that's good.
So got her some some bulbs that stuff that will come back every year, so she can plant it. And next year,
We did
oh,
not see
those Mother's Day
my
tulips
mom
he got
today.
me. Oh, what a good boy! He got me Mother's Day tulips.
What a good boy.
Yeah, and I stopped by my sister's and dropped off some of the same for my sisters. So I made a couple of rounds on Mother's Day today and stopped by and saw the mothers in my life that aren't my wonderful and beautiful wife.
That's good.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
yeah.
did not see my mom today. We saw my mom last weekend. Last weekend was my dad's birthday, so we sort of did like combo see my dad for his birthday / see my mom for early Mother's Day.
Yep.
Last weekend. We did see Ren's mom, and Ren's sister was able to make it in from out of town unexpectedly and surprise her. So that was like a big happy Mother's Day surprise. So that was very
Excellent.
nice.
Excellent. To moms. There we go. We'll go with, by the way, I've got a fat tire tonight. I'm going fat tire.
Okay. I've got gin and pink lemonade tonight.
There you go.
It's so I got my mind on my money, and my money on my mind.
Indeed, indeed.
As,
So to mother. There we go. Clink, clink.
Salute. So we got a show tonight. We got a serious
Oh,
show
boy,
tonight.
do we.
Yeah, we've got people who are trying to have real grown-up jobs in our city. Friend of the program, Tom Spagel. Friend of the program, Sydney Zimmermann. Both of whom are running for mayor in upcoming Democratic primaries. I did extend the invite, by the way, to the mayor's office.
Did the assistant get you
No,
email you yet?
no.
Because I know last week you said you had emailed.
As a matter of fact, no, they did not, and I think that's a thing that we should bring up with our upcoming friends. That when you put an inquiry in to
official inquiry, not just any old inquiry, not just some random email.
No, like we're press, like we got a show, we got pages and stuff that looks real and all that shit. And I sent.
We have our own political advertisements.
We do. And I sent essentially the same requests that I sent to Tom and that I sent to Sydney and that I sent to most of the city council friends and all of that who have been on the show. I niced it up a little bit because he is the mayor, and I was because most of them I'm like, hey Sydney, hey Tom.
Yeah.
And I stood on ceremony just slightly more. If anything, I was a little bit nicer to the mayor, which, one might not necessarily think.
Bravo.
So I went through the channels that you do. Proper channels, because you can't send a message to the mayor on Facebook. Because if you go to his page and you hit the message button, it's a link and it takes you to the city government's contact form on their website. Yeah. I'm like, all right.
Can you imagine though the inbox of Mayor Schember, like what it would look like if it was just like any old rando could just drop off a message though? That would be
it would be bad.
It'd be a tedious waste of time to pay somebody to have to go through and filter out all the garbage.
So the contact form.
Here's a real legitimate issue.
The contact form is a mild deterrent to the crazies, and they still have to have somebody sort through it.
That is true.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I did this, 5-6 weeks ago when I was first putting together the idea that we were going to try to talk to all these people before the primaries, and real promptly, like within a couple hours, you get these automated replies, and it's like your inquiry has been received. And then it's like your inquiry has been assigned to a staff member who will review it and then assign it to the person who's going to respond to you. Great. And all of this happened like within like 12 hours of me doing this.
Yeah.
And
And
there it fucking sits.
nothing.
Nothing. Like I want to.
It's a metaphor.
So
for a lot of
we got. There's friends of the show who work for the city. I know. Yeah, messages. Tom Spagel and one other who requested to join. We got guests ready to join us. We'll get them in here in a quick minute. But yeah, friends who work for the city. Let me know who in the mayor's office is the person who I should give a hard time to about this. Because we got one more show still after this week before the elections, and that is going to be a grab bag of a show where we talk to the people that for one reason or another we have not gotten to. We've not spent much time on school board, so there'll be some school board friends, some city council folks that we did not get to. We've exchanged some words with some of the people running for sheriff.
I'm sure you have.
Yeah, they've been real civil so far, but. Yeah, so, next week is a little up in the air, but, Joe, if you're listening, you're not listening. But if you're listening, we can pencil you in for next week.
We would make time.
We might even bump somebody.
We would make time, Mr. Mayor.
We would make time. So we got Tom Spagel and Sydney Zimmermann ready to join us on the program. So let's get into a piece of music. Let's get them in here, and then let's have a conversation about some stuff. So I'm gonna do a vanity piece of music. There's a festival that in the before times was in Asheville, North Carolina that I used to play every year, or I played a number of years.
What's in the before times?
In the before times, it's now called the Mountain Skies Festival. And last year it did not happen at all because COVID, and then this year, it happened in a hybrid way. They did half a day of performances at the venue, and then the other day and a half was people streaming from their respective locations. So I streamed a set for the Mountain Skies Festival in Asheville, North Carolina earlier today. We will not get into all of that, but here's the first couple minutes of that, and then we'll be back with Tom Spagel, Sydney Zimmermann, Social Distancing Variety Hour. Social distancing variety hour. That's been a couple minutes of me from earlier today. And that whole set is up on the YouTubes if you want to check that out later. Not now. Keep watching this now. But yeah, that is up on my YouTube at youtube.com/onewaynes. Pardon me.
Excellent segue there, Adam.
Thanks. That's what I'm here for, is for the excellent segues. Tom Spagel, Sydney Zimmermann. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hello, how are you guys? Thank you for having us on tonight.
Yeah, definitely.
Welcome to Social Distancing Variety Hour.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So for those who don't know you, those who don't know who you are and where you're from and what you're up to and what you're trying to do, I'll just give you both a couple minutes to introduce yourselves a little bit and talk about who you are and what you're doing.
Sydney, go ahead. You can go first. Ladies before gentlemen.
So hello, everybody. For those of you who don't know, my name is Sydney Zimmermann. I'm 28 years old. I've lived in Erie for most of my life, but I'm originally from Dallas, Texas. Moved around a little bit, lived in Michigan, California, back in Texas, and ultimately came back to Erie, as many folks do, and have kind of made my life here. And so since 2018, I've been a canvasser with a local community group called Erie County United. You might have seen me at your door before. And that's a big reason why I ran for mayor. You know, getting close to the deadline for the petitions, I didn't feel like there were good candidates to represent the issues that people really need to be, heard, you know, in our city. And so I decided to go ahead and challenge that status quo, get my 100 signatures, actually 144 signatures, turn them in, so that there could at least be somebody ready to voice those issues on the ballot for May 18th. So that's why I'm here. That's why I'm running. I'm excited to have a conversation with y'all tonight, and I appreciate you letting me be here.
Well, all right.
Good stuff.
Thank you, City. Tom.
All right. Well, thank you again, gentlemen, for having us here. And thank you, Sydney, for participating as well. I wish we could have had all three of us, but, you know.
Yeah, us too.
Maybe other people have other priorities. You know, I think Sydney and I are really focusing on trying to improve Erie and not do the same old thing like what Joe's currently doing. So I certainly appreciate Sydney being here, and I think she has a voice that needs to be heard. And I'm certainly glad she's in the race. A little bit about myself. I own a tiny little business called Skindell. We make pasta and pepperoni balls, and hopefully you guys know all about our pepperoni balls. That's a good thing for Erie. It's a good thing. Pays my mortgage, so buy more of them. I'd appreciate that. You know, so we've owned that business for 28 years, and with that, we've created a number of jobs. And our shop's down at 25th and Ash. You know, down in an area that needs the jobs the most. And so we've been able to create jobs for the last 28 years and very glad to do so. I spent the last 8 years in the school board. When I started in the school board, we were $26 million in debt. We're at the point where we couldn't even make payroll, and it was embarrassing. And so we're able to figure that out. And I want to be able to take that same amount of financial leadership and skills and strategic planning to City Hall and get it squared away there, because we're straight on our track to, it's called Act 47, which means distressed city, and we're going to be in a world of hurt if we don't get that figured out. And I spent 25 years in the military. Unlike Sydney, I'm a lifelong Erie guy, with the exception of when I moved around for the military a little bit here and there. So I went to East High. After East, I wanted to go to college. We didn't have any money, so I ended up going to service to get the GI Bill. Came back, and after 4 years in the Air Force, I went to Gannon. At that point, I got commissioned as an officer in the Army. I bounced around in the Army Reserves for the next 21 years. So I like to tell people I get dumber as I went, switching from the Air Force to the Army, but it's kind of worked out well. And the leadership skills that I learned there, and I retired as a major after 25 years, I want to be able to take those leadership skills that I've honed in the military and take it to Erie, because Erie needs leadership. I mean, Joe's a nice guy, but, to be honest, it takes more than just being a nice guy to lead, the city. So that's a little bit about me.
Well, all right. So, Sydney, you said that you got into the race because you had issues that were important to you, and you wanted to bring them. You wanted to make sure that they were highlighted. So, tell us what are some of these issues? I mean, you don't have to list the top 3 or anything like that, but what are the issues that you, as mayor, are going to be fighting for, or priorities in a Zimmermann administration?
For sure. So I've said it before that I think that the number one issue, not just like in Erie, but across our nation, is systemic racism. I mean, it touches a lot of different parts of our community, whether it's education, transportation, housing, healthcare, just the way that people interact with, our government or our law enforcement. It touches all different aspects of it, right? And so I think that's at the top of my list, is how do we address that in the way that we can as a city? And part of it is like advocacy, right? Just making sure that we're speaking up as leaders, even when something's not under our direct control. We have state representatives in town. We have Congress people that we have access to. We have business owners who the city works with. We have avenues that we can address things, not just through policy or funding, but through being active advocates for our city. And so, another thing for me is community input, so that we can have more accessibility, more equity within our city. I think that even when we do get community input, we're not listening a good amount of the time, not taking that feedback into account when we make plans. There are some times where we ask for feedback when plans are already made, and decisions are already going forward. And so I think we need to take that more seriously. But I think that all kind of goes into the other issues, right? Whether it's the city budget and, realizing that we're spending money in places we don't need to, and that we need to hold folks more accountable we just started having reviews at City Hall. What is that about? I get a review every 6 months as a canvasser. So, making sure that we have reviews, especially for high paying positions, making sure that we have correct training, making sure that when our city talks about things like housing, affordable housing, we take that seriously, making sure that when we hear things like
Whoop, did she just freeze up? We have a frozen Sydney Zimmermann.
We have a frozen Sydney.
Got it.
She was on a roll too.
Yeah, I was gonna let her go. There was a couple times where I was like, but she was on a roll, so I was gonna let her go. But I guess we'll have to wait and come back to Sydney. I was gonna have to follow up.
I might have.
I'm sure you will as well, Adam.
Yeah, I'm gonna just bump her out, just so she can get back in, basically. But
there we go.
Yeah, I'm gonna reach out to Sydney and make sure she's okay.
You go ahead. I will talk to Tom.
So
Tom,
talk amongst yourselves.
All right.
You were saying earlier. I'll give you the same question that I gave Sydney, and that's how we'll get started. you're running for mayor, and you've got priorities and goals that you want to set as a mayor. So what are your top priorities if you are elected mayor?
Well, more than anything else, I think Erie needs solid leadership. Again, as I said earlier, just being a nice guy doesn't necessarily make you the best fit for mayor, even if you've done it for a couple of years.
Right.
I really think we have to square away our finances. If you take a look right from the city's website, you can take a look. In 2 years, we're going to be $5 million short. In 3 years, we're going to be $8 million short. And in 4 years, if Joe gets reelected, the day he steps out of office, we're going to be $12.5 million short negative fund balance. We have to get that squared away right away. And the big issue for that is, and it's a multifaceted issue, really. But one, we have to control our spending. The spending under Joe is just way higher than it's been in the last 3.5 years when he first took over. That has to get under control, and that's something I would do straight away. And you can't even do that unless City Hall's open. We need to open City Hall. Like, really? I know this is a social distancing show here, but in our business, we've had to stay open. You adapt, what we say in the Army.
Well,
adapt
you're a business. When you say you have to stay open, you're a business. You have to stay open in order to sell pepperoni balls.
Sure.
Right.
But the city needs to stay open to provide services for our taxpayers as well.
Exactly.
You can do this smartly. There's if Walmart can do it, if Stanganelli's can do it, the City Hall can do it too. It's a long time. This is one thing in a short period of time. It's something else to have the City Hall closed for this long.
Yeah.
And it's just,
it's
not providing the services that we need for the city.
Do we really want City Hall to be Walmart though?
Agreed. But what I'm saying is, if we can figure out how to do it, why can't the city figure out how to do City Halls? It's not difficult to do.
I work for the government. I work for the state, and our office has been closed for over a year. We're all working from home. We're still providing service. We're still doing all the things we've been doing. There have been a few things that we've had to reduce a little bit, but there's been a lot of government offices that have been, it's certainly not unique to City Hall that it has been closed for this time. I work in an office that has been closed for this same period of time that we're talking about. Sydney's back.
But just to follow up, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but you had gotten so fiscal solvency is one of the big issues that you're running on, Tom. What in addition to that, because we can circle back around to that and tackle that here in a moment.
Yeah, and we will.
Sure.
But go ahead, please. I didn't mean to cut you off there or join in, but I'll let you finish up with some of your other priorities, just so that I don't want to hamstring you as just that one issue.
Oh, sure. There's plenty of other issues. One is job creation. We really need jobs. Now, one of the big reasons why I got involved with all this is my wife and I had conversations. We have 2 children that are about out of college, and call us selfish. We want our children to live in our home, right? Or not in our home, but at least in our hometown. They can leave home.
They get their own place.
Yeah, right. But they have to have the opportunity to stay here and to work here and to be employed. And when I was in high school, we had about 115,000 people, give or take, living in Erie. Now we're about 94,000 people. People are leaving, and the brain drain is a real thing here in Erie. And we have to have the opportunity and create that climate. So I really want to be able to create jobs, and particularly small businesses. That's what we really need to do. So that's a big facet of what my platform is, to really create jobs. We need that. And Erie needs so much. Economic development is what everything hinges on. And we have to entice companies to come into town. And we do that for a variety of ways. Our education system has to be improved. Parks have to be improved. We have to have streets that are cleared from snow. So I live about 4 or 5 blocks away from Mill Creek. And it's amazing how we have a ton of snow. Good thing I have 4-wheel drive. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to get out of my driveway. But, 4 blocks away, the roads are nice and smooth. We need to be able to provide better services for the amount of taxes that we pay here in Erie.
Well, and I mean,
I don't know.
saying we need to improve parks, we need to improve this, and we need to improve that. I don't disagree with any of that.
No.
But how do you improve the things you want to improve while still trying
Without
to
spending
spend
money.
less money?
All right. Well, one, our spending is much higher than it's ever been. And it's easy to just jump on city's website. You can take a look and see what the budgets have been and what they are now. So one, we need to be able to decrease the amount of expenditures right away, which is relatively easy to do. So that's one. And one, if we treat the operations of the city as a business, and people say, well, you can't do that. It's business. It's government. It's not business. Well, we thought the same thing in the school district, and we hired the right person, the right people, and put right people in place, and treated the school district like the $220 million business that it is. And we've been able to get ourselves financially squared away. We're in the best financial position as we have been in decades. And that's because of proper strategic planning, putting the right people in the right position.
And it's because there is an influx of cash.
You're
budget
right.
The budget cuts that almost put the school district out of business and had them closing schools, etc., was that budget shortfall was made up. That budget,
Sure.
The hole in the budget was filled with proper funding.
Correct. And how did we do that? We did that through hard work, perseverance, and relationships. And that's what we need to do. We were able to build the relationships with the state legislature, with the state senators, and with the governor to figure out how to increase our basic funding formula, or basic education funding, as well as the fair funding formula. We were able to do that. And that's what Erie's been lacking, is we don't have the relationships in Harrisburg. We don't have the relationships in DC as we once had. It's a big difference if, the mayor of Erie calls up DC and if somebody answers and said, hey, it's the mayor of Erie versus, hey, it's Tom Spagel, the mayor of Erie. You have to be able to build those personal relationships, and that's how to improve things.
So I guess I'm trying to follow you here. So we used to have good relationships
Correct.
with Harrisburg. When was that we had good relationships with?
I give the perfect example of Lou Tullio. Lou Tullio was the mayor here for a long time, and he had the type of relationship skills. It's something that he made it a point to go down to Harrisburg at least once a month, and he went down to DC at least once a quarter. And that's where we get a whole lot of grants, a whole lot of funding, state and federal funding. And that's kind of what we need to do.
Well, I'm certainly not by any means suggesting that this is, where you're coming from, but we just came out of a federal administration that was sort of premised on let's run the government like a business, and a lot of which was premised on it's important for me to be able to have personal relationships with people and make deals with people. And I think we can hopefully all agree that was a big old clusterfuck. So the idea of that's the approach that we need to be taking as a city is a little bit alarming, I guess. So I guess I want to give you a chance to separate what you're proposing to do from the Trump administration's approach to let's run government like a business. Let's base this all on having strong personal business relationships with leaders of other entities and all of that, because I can agree in the abstract that there are things from business that are valuable for government, but having just been through all of that with the rest of you guys, that was not a lot of fun. And
And there's a vital difference where
so tell me this
businesses
is
are
different.
run to make profit. Government is not run to make profit, and that's
Sure.
the big difference. When I hear people say we need to run government like a business, my first thoughts are no, we don't. Government is services. Government is
Right.
providing various services and standing up for people's rights and making sure that the climate of the city or the town or the municipality or the state or the federal level is conducive to job creation and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, providing the various services for the citizenry, which is vastly different than the let's make a profit.
I mean,
well, you're
ultimately-
absolutely right, Garrett.
Sorry.
In that respect, I agree with that side of it. But there's a whole lot of processes and concepts from the business world that we need to incorporate. For instance, in the business world, you have a finite amount of money to deal with. You can't just keep on asking my customers to pay more, pay more, pay more. Eventually, there's going to be a point where they're just not going to pay, right?
But pepperoni balls aren't 15 cents a piece anymore like they were 30 years ago. I mean,
You're absolutely right.
The price of pepperoni balls has gone up, so we have passed the prices on to you are asking the customer or the person receiving the services to pay more.
Oh, absolutely. As a normal cost of living allowances, that'd be one thing. Is with the cost of living, they go up. But take a look at the amount of spending in the city versus the cost of living. Cost of living goes up about 2% every year. Our spending's going up. Our spending in the area has gone up for a heck of a lot more than 2% a year. So some of the basic principles in business, of course, is you have a finite amount of money that you have to work with. You have a budget, and you see how productive are we? How efficient are we? And we'll say, as you were saying, Adam, how many people that have employed, for instance, my sister-in-law, she works for the county, not the city, she works for the county. She shares a job with a couple people, right?
Okay.
So for the last year, she's been working 1 day on, 1 day off. And this is how a lot of cities, states, counties all over are doing this. Well, if there are 3 or 4 people on the same job, 1 day on, 1 day off for 14 months, I would say, you know what? You probably don't need all of those people, right? That would never happen in the business because you have to be conscious of all of those dollars. And it's very easy to spend other people's money, particularly in the government side. So those are the type of principles that you really should apply. So this way, you're not spending too much money on payroll, and you can decrease the tax liability on our citizens.
Okay, so how do you do that and improve services? If you're cutting personnel, if you're cutting people, if you're cutting bottom lines on budgets, how do you do that and make sure the roads get plowed? Because if you're
perfect example, it's really a shifting money.
Just let me finish here, Tom. So let's just make snow plowing, because that's an easily understood process, right?
Yeah.
So if we're cutting from, let's say, 20 snowplow drivers to 10, I don't know how that improves the snowplow service when there's a blizzard and roads need plowed.
Well, I would take the opposite approach to that. Instead of going from 20 to 10, I would say, let's take a look at the budget to see where for instance, we have an events coordinator for the city that we never had before that's getting, a high dollar amount. Instead of having an events coordinator that, Joe's canceled all the fun stuff, Roar on the Shore, the block parties, all the good, fun, cool stuff that we all like to go to. Instead of having somebody do that job, how about we have more snowplow drivers? How about we have more people working in the parks? How about we have more people creating or doing like when I was a kid, we had programs at Burton Park where I grew up, and have more people doing that, providing a service to our citizens, not having more admin people that are unnecessary.
I guess I'm having trouble squaring the whole. I'm with you on, hey, that's great, for snow plowing and such. Like I said, I just picked that as an example. I like the examples you gave of the parks and various programs and that the city offers. Well, those cost money that cost. We could get. Let's get rid of the Erie events coordinator tomorrow, and then we would hire people for those other services that you're just rattled off.
Well, and I know you're somewhat cherry picking with the events coordinator, but like events will come back, and there's a
was
lot
gonna be-
of
yeah.
there's a lot of these sort of big picture pie in the sky strategy.
You're breaking up, Adam.
I'm sorry. Better now?
Now, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of the kind of, big picture, particularly when you talk about bayfront development and things like that. A lot of that is kind of based on the notion of tourism in Erie. And tourism in Erie has a lot to do with there being events in Erie. And if you're like, well, we haven't had any events, let's get rid of the event guy, so now there's nobody to put on the events.
And then when we reopen and we're ready to have events, we have no coordinator.
Yeah. And
well,
then,
let me jump in real quick.
Yeah,
let
please,
me jump in
please,
real quick
please do
because
so.
there are
By
other
all means.
positions. There are other positions that we can look at, right? First and foremost, going back, I mentioned reviews, right? So if somebody's not doing their job properly, and we have a review, and we find that we give them a improvement plan and they're not improving, then that's a way to cut costs with like rationale and reason and logic, that allows for people who are doing their job to be protected by the reviews, right? And people who aren't doing their jobs to be cut out. And we can see, okay, does it really take 3 people to do this job, or is it only going to take 1? I mean, take city council, for instance. They've cut their meetings, right? But they have, I believe, 3 clerks for the council. Well, if they're going to cut their meetings and cut their, time there, then maybe we need to look at the 3 positions and say, do we need 3 clerks? And maybe we need to look at outsourcing things that the city is not a huge focus, right? Like sending tax bills out. And then on top of that, there have been stories circulating about seeing city workers in city vehicles around town in places that they shouldn't be during city hours, right? So why don't we do something like put some tech in GPS tech inside of our cars, have routes planned out for folks and say, you're going to this job site, the easiest way to get here is this way, stop for a sandwich or a Coke or whatever, just mark it down so that we know where you are, kind of thing. And in that way, we can cut costs like for gas. Instead of people driving all around town, right? We know where they're at, we know where they're supposed to be, and we're ensuring that city resources aren't being spent willy-nilly, right? And then in that way, we're able to take the funds that are saved and put them towards things like, I'd love to see a youth job program, because we talk about, revitalizing our neighborhoods all the time. Why not get them out there raking leaves, mowing lawns? I mean, we have a quality of life ticketing that Mayor Schember's administration put in, and it doesn't really address the issue. It just punishes people for, having unkempt yards or not being up to code. And so, instead of attacking poor people for issues that maybe their landlord is in charge of, why don't we, get the kids out, get some a job program supported by the city, and, revitalize our neighborhoods, get our kids connected with our community, and really build ourselves up. We just have to be having more thoughtful discussions that can produce creative solutions, because they're out there. But if we're not, really putting our heads together and trying to be thoughtful, we can't get any new changes in without that kind of thing.
Sydney, I like the idea of reviewing positions. How would you go about ensuring that the review process isn't something punitive that later mayors will be using to remove political adversaries that don't agree with them, so they could put their friends and otherwise into, so that the review process doesn't become weaponized and politicized? What kind of safeguards would you have in place?
Yeah, I think being transparent is really important.
As much as I like the idea of the whole review process and think that's a great idea, at the same time, I can see where that process in the past has been weaponized for political purposes, to remove adversaries and install cronies.
Well, and I'm also sort of having this vision of that scene from Office Space, which I'm, outing myself as an old person because I'm making Office Space references, but
Indeed you are.
of them essentially all having to interview to keep their own jobs. And, I think that would be an unpleasant situation to put all of the city employees into. And I think, there is probably some redundancy in city government, just like there's probably some redundancy in state government and county government and federal government. But, how do you do that in a way that's compassionate to the people in those jobs and not just being like, well, we got 3 of you, we only need 1, so the other 2 of you are out on the streets, and now we've lost 2 jobs in Erie.
Well, the thing is, I think Garrett asked me directly. Do you mind if I answer real quick, Tom?
Hold on, Tom. Let Sydney answer, and then we'll come to you right after she's done. Thanks.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Very good, yeah.
So okay, I understand what you're saying, interview for your own position, but let's think about this. If we have a job description, right, then we can take that job description when we go into a review, and we can say, hey, these are the responsibilities outlined in your job description. And, we can have another sheet that says, these were the goals for this quarter or this half of the year or this year. And we're going to go through and we're going to see if you hit these goals, kind of thing. I think also having a review for employees for their supervisors, that their supervisors review, is also making it more equal, right? So that if there is an issue that needs to be reported and say, hey, this happened with my review, right? Then we can have a process that says, okay, we're going to review this as a supervisor, right? And we're going to go through and make sure your supervisor did what they were supposed to. Because if they didn't give you the training or they didn't give you the resources to complete your job, you shouldn't be punished for not doing that, right? So I think making sure, it's kind of like when you go into a college course and you have a syllabus. Syllabus isn't just, hey, students, you're supposed to do this within a semester. It's a contract between the teacher and the student. And the professor says, these are the things I'm going to cover. You can hold me to this as well as me holding you to this, right? Because I've had professors who didn't stick to the syllabus, and I've been able to go to the dean and say, I shouldn't be graded on this. This isn't in the syllabus. So I think that, we do need to have protections for workers. I think reviews can be protections as well as a way for employers to measure what their employees are doing.
Okay.
Tom,
because in my opinion, it's scary not to have a rubric. It's scary not to have something that I can say, this is what I'm responsible for. I did what I was responsible for. And I can't be held accountable for something that's not in here.
Yeah. Here's what my job is. Here's what I'm expected to do. And here's what I've done. And here's my performance.
Exactly.
Understood. Tom, you were going to say?
Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
Sure. And I guess this goes back to, as they say, Erie needs real leadership. For instance, the police force. The police force really needs to be professional.
Go on.
And I brought this up, actually, about 2 years ago. I called Mayor Schember on the radio one time. He has his, once a month on the Friday shows. And I know this because my brother is a city police officer. And so Erie is a third-class city. And the police officers, that is a civil service job. Erie is the only third-class city in Pennsylvania that does not follow through with the evaluations and merit-based promotions. So I called Joe on the radio because this is before I had any ideas whatsoever of running for mayor. And I said, hey, Joe, it seems like we need to have, the evaluations, the merit-based promotion system for the police force. We're not doing that. Oh, yep. Yeah, we're going to be working on that. Fine. So when Sydney and I were at the Democratic nomination, what do you call it? When the Democratic committee, when they're looking to see who they're going to endorse, I asked him about this. Oh, yeah, we're doing those evaluations. And I know that we're not. And I'm not saying that he lied. I just think that he just doesn't know what's going on to the point where he thought evaluations were going on. The police officers do not have evaluations. So this is the way it works. Sydney, I like you. You're going to get promoted. Garrett, man, you're not in the cool crowd. Sorry, you're not getting promoted. And that's not how we need to have professional policing. That is a serious lack of leadership, particularly when you know what the issues are and you just ignore them. We cannot ignore progress. We cannot ignore how to become a professional, better community. And that's what's going on, just through the lack of leadership.
So the review process, you're using the police department as an example of the review process that you would be putting in place if you were
absolutely
mayor.
Well, sure. And I tell you, this isn't crazy talk. This is how everybody does it. Like, for instance, when I was in the military, everybody I was an officer, had an OER, an officer evaluation review. And I would sit down, just as Sydney said, and I agree with her completely. These are your goals. These are your tasks. These are expectations. And then you meet. Did you meet them or did you not meet them? And you have to have trained supervisors to make sure you have an honest evaluation. Not everybody is the best police officer. Not everybody's the best canvasser. Not everybody's the best pepperoni bowl roller, right? So you just have to be able to have merit-based promotion to see who should get the promotions, who should get raises and so forth. This is not crazy talk. It's crazy talk in Erie because we don't do it, but in everywhere else,
it's similar to the school district. The way teachers are evaluated. You say it's similar to the school district. The way teachers are evaluated.
Oh, absolutely. Do teachers get evaluated?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The police department, your police department evaluations would be similar to the way teachers are evaluated in various districts around the country.
Absolutely. And then I'll tell you, and that's good, solid leadership. And that's why Erie's, minus the whole COVID craziness, when I can talk about school district stuff all day long, but this is the way it works for the school district teachers, is they actually have an evaluation where somebody sits in the classroom and watches them perform. It's not just a conversation over a desk. It is absolutely being watched. And that's a good way to do that. That's a great evaluation system that we have in place, and it works.
Now, would there be evaluations of leadership from the rank and file that you would have in place?
I guess I don't understand the question.
Well,
so
if you're
evaluating
who evaluates the evaluators?
Yeah, if we're going to implement police department evaluations for the police officers, would there also be leadership evaluation? Similar to, like, as Sydney was saying, in college, students get to evaluate the deans, or students get to evaluate the professors, and those reports go to the deans. Would there be, in school districts, we evaluate principals and assistant principals are evaluated from, a portion of their evaluation comes from the teachers that they are in charge of. Would the police department, would you have similar evaluations of the police department leadership from the rank and file? Would they be?
Well, what I would do is I would work with the administration. I would work with the leadership to create a holistic evaluation approach with that. And for us to get down into the picayune details with that here, that might be a little bit tough, because I don't want to say something. Anything I believe in. Yeah.
I just wanted your opinion on whether or not that's something that would be part of the evaluation process as well.
It certainly sounds reasonable, but typically evaluations go top down; they don't go bottom up. That I've ever worked with it, but
that's the thing, is that we need to do things that aren't necessarily typical, that aren't necessarily status quo, because especially in the police force, because if your leadership has been, like you said, if you have somebody who says, Sydney, we really like you, but Garrett, we don't like you, and Sydney moves up and Sydney is just cronying it up, well, now she's at the top. Who's reviewing the person at the top? And with the police force, I think it even becomes even important to protect people's anonymity, so that folks, whether it's the guy that you drive in the patrol car with, or it's your supervisor, you feel comfortable saying, hey, this person is not acting right. They're in charge of protecting and serving our community, but they're doing the opposite. I need to feel safe reporting them, that I'm not going to get some type of backlash. So that's when it's like, okay, does that report go to the police chief, or does it go to the mayor? so that there's a little bit of, separation between church and state, if you will, to ensure that people are protected in making these reports and that things actually get fixed.
Well, and
or is there a separate independent evaluative board that is in serving in that capacity?
and when oversight only flows downhill, the concern is there that you can rise to a level where you become bulletproof.
Yeah, and Garrett, I think what you're saying is really important. There have been folks who have asked for a citizens review board of our police department, especially since the happenings with the protests over the last year. And it's for me, it's not that insane of an idea that the community that you're policing should have an opportunity to have some feedback for the department that, again, is supposed to be protecting and serving them.
Well, and I agree with that. I think that the community
Citizens Review Board.
Pardon me.
The Citizens Review Board, is that what you were?
Some people call it. I've heard it called Community Review Board, Citizens Review Board. Yes. It's just conceptual at this point, but it's a pretty good idea to take a look at that, to take a look at the holistic program, and we need to make sure we get feedback with everything that we do. It would be very naive of us to think that, hey, let's continue to think in our siloed way of thinking, and that's a old way of doing things that we're never going to progress if we think that way.
So you're in favor. I just want to make sure you're in favor of a citizens review board or a community review board, whatever terminology we want to use.
Absolutely, that's a valuable piece of information out there. Now, I'm not saying that they should override and going to take over the city council's responsibility, something like that. But it's all information is good information. Feedback's a great thing.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to.
Glad
to hear that.
So, Mr. Skindell,
yes, sir.
We were talking about the concept of evaluating police officers more like teachers. I don't think this is a reveal for anybody because I think I've already said this to anybody who didn't know, but you are a teacher in the city district. How do you feel about the way the city school district is evaluating teachers, and how do you feel about that being a model for how we might evaluate anybody else in whatever other job?
Are you hearing me? Are you hearing us all right there, Tom? Because I know you were having.
I don't hear Adam very well. He breaks up quite a bit. Does it break up for you as well?
No, I'm good. I noticed you were having audio issues. You'd mentioned you were having audio issues. I just wanted to make sure you could hear what Adam was saying.
I'll bump myself up.
You're hearing me all right though, correct?
I hear you and Sydney very well.
Okay.
It's my FM radio voice.
Why, thank you very much. Yes, well, as far as like evaluations and such go, there's here's the thing. When people get all up in arms when they hear things like defund the police, and they kind of like to misconstrue and misinterpret and misrepresent and mischaracterize that. But when it comes to defunding education, they've been doing that for decades. We've been defunding education and making teachers and school districts have to do more with less for almost 2 generations now.
Right.
And so I have some issues with the way teachers are evaluated as it pertains to standardized testing, and the big push for state standardized testing and basing evaluations off of standardized testing. But that's a whole nother issue that doesn't really involve mayoral. I mean, as a school board member, I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit later in your time on the school board and your experience as a school board member. But just as far as Adam's question to me about comparing teacher evaluations with police evaluations, I think as far as structure is concerned, I think teacher evaluations are, as far as the administrative evaluations of teachers are very constructive in helping. But at the same time, I've seen over my almost 25 years of teaching that the same way you might get on the wrong side of a principal. I would not want to be a police officer on the wrong side of my supervisor when it comes to getting evaluations, whether I'm doing my job or not. I've seen many, many teachers who are fabulous and great teachers, but had principals that maybe weren't, and
Sure.
had or assistant principals and principals that gave them poor reviews simply because there was personal things going on, or there were, axes to grind and vice versa and stuff like that. So my worry and concern is that similar methods would be used in police evaluations, where the go along and get along guys all get promoted in the police department, and the ones that are working their tails off and doing things the right way but may not be kissing the boss's ass are the ones that get the shitty reviews. So when I asked Sydney for, what kind of safeguards would she have to ensure that future administrations don't abuse that process, that's in part where I'm kind of coming from. So, that's just to answer your question as directly and as long-windedly as I possibly could.
That's what we're here for, is the long-winded answers.
Yeah, when because I think the police department would be well served to have a proper and a thoughtful and honest participatory evaluation process to make sure that those on the job are doing their job and are doing their job well, and are those that are doing it exemplary are being promoted. Educator promotions and things like that don't necessarily work in the same way, as they would in the police department.
You don't become sergeant social studies teacher.
No, sergeant history. No, you don't become sergeant history or major history even. So
if we ever get Maris to make more shirts for the show, your next one is saying major history.
Major history, but structurally they're different entities, but conceptually, I think the evaluation process is similar or could be utilized similarly. Now, whether that's, like I said, whether that's something that either of the two of you candidates support or promote or otherwise is, I'm not the one running for mayor, but just to clarify, just to help answer your question there, Adam. So let's move forward, because it's our questions for me. They're questions for the two of you guys.
So, speaking of the police, we've been talking a lot about the police, and we've been talking a lot about ways to spend less money.
In part because the police is one of the many things directly under the authority of the mayor.
Yeah.
Well, I've got the City of Erie's 2021 budget in front of me.
Oh, you're going to tell us they ate $38 million?
37.9. Yeah, that's points to Sydney.
About 40% of our budget.
Yeah, 38%. Because the total budget, $97.7 million. Police's budget, $37.9 million, which is 38% of the budget. And if we're gonna get down to the detail of, like, let's get rid of the one guy who plans events, where in the structure of all the cuts do you think where do you think in that $37.9 million are there opportunities in there to save some of that money that we're going to use to bring jobs to Erie, to bring back youth programs, to help the parks, to all of those things that we all think are great ideas? And I'll let you take that one at a time.
Let's go to Tom. Let's go to Tom first on this.
Sure. Well, again, Erie's a third-class city, and we're required by the state to have X number of police officers as a function of our population. And you were not allowed to have more or less. I know that. I don't want to misspeak. I know we have to have a minimum number of police officers as a function. If we have money available, we, of course, can hire more.
You can have more, you can have more, but you can't have less.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you have a sense? Do you have a sense for what that number is?
Yes, I do. I don't have it in front of me
I
right
want to
now.
say it's something like 107. Is it 117 or is it 100? I'm sorry.
I think we're at right about 120, give or take, and we're at the minimum number now. We used to have more police officers previously, but we've had to cut numbers in the past just because the population is decreasing, and the previous administrations have been able to keep that in check for the most part. I don't believe that we're at the point where we can decrease the numbers as a function of it's state law.
Yes.
There are some wiggle room with the number of positions. That is the same thing with the fire department. You have to have X number of firemen on duty at all times. You just can't take those away.
Well,
Because
I think it would be. I think it would be. Nobody's out here with the hot take that we should let more things catch on fire.
Yeah, but also that's because these are services and not a business. These are services provided to citizens, not the business.
2021 police budget, by the way, is 173 full-time equivalents. Just for
I guess if we're talking about cuts to be fiscally responsible, where can we make? I mean, not talking about rank and file police officers on the streets. We're talking about possibly administrative cuts can be made. Do we have any plans or any policies that are going to be in place to cut administrative positions possibly at the police department?
Absolutely. What I'd be a big advocate in is right sizing the correct ratio between administrators and the police on the ground. I'm a huge advocate of community policing. For instance, my shop at 25th and Ash, you know how many times I've been there for 28 years? Guess how many times I've seen a police officer walking by, "Hey, Tom, how are you doing today?" Take a round guess. How many people or how many times? Perfect, Garrett. You got it.
There's police don't walk. Police don't walk.
Why wouldn't they walk? How about being on the bicycles? We used to have a heck of a lot more bicycle officers than we have now. Now we have a couple that come out with special events. We really don't see them that often. Now, granted, you can't in January. Fully get that. But the reality, when you have community policing, it's a more proactive approach to policing, and it's going to squash a whole lot of the issues. When somebody knows the people in their assigned district, you're going to have a little bit less reluctance to go to the police. How many, and again, I just know this from talking to some of the police officers I know, we have a lot of people in administrative positions that probably don't necessarily need to be there. Now, you need the detectives, you need the special individual police officers, of course. You need somebody in charge of burglary. You need somebody in charge of
there's a detective department that specializes in burglaries and thefts and such, and violent. I gotcha. Here's my thing, though. Here's my thing. If community policing is a fabulous idea, and I love the idea, and I'm a big fan of expanding and installing community policing throughout the city. But then we come back to the same thing. That costs money to do that. And earlier in the show, you were talking about how we have to be fiscally solvent and fiscally prudent. And how does one cut these things? How does one cut the budget and then improve services? And that brings me right back to the point, my snowplow analogy. If we're cutting, how are we going to install and create a brand new out of whole cloth community policing system without spending more money than we have budgeted to the current police department?
Well, it doesn't take a great deal of money to do community policing. It's more of an approach rather than spending money. It doesn't cost money to get to know your neighbors. It doesn't cost money to walk around. It doesn't cost money to be accessible. Those are just.
But it costs money. It costs money for the city to put initiatives into place that encourage these things.
Or even like with community policing, I would think having satellite police precincts around the city throughout the east and west side of the city, rather than, because that is part of community policing is having satellite precincts throughout the community so that police officers can walk the neighborhood and return to their community precinct, their local neighborhood precinct, rather than simply drive-throughs and the such.
Sure.
And
well, the city owns an awful lot of properties between the garages, between the fire departments. We owned a lot of properties that can be multi-use. For instance, I'll give you a perfect example. There's a fire department down on Marne, down, you know where that is, where Marne Avenue is?
Yep. Yes.
And it's practically empty right now. We store some equipment and so forth.
I was about to say, I think it's storage now. It's not an active building. It's
Correct.
Storage. Yeah.
Correct. I mean, these are the principles that I say, business type of principles. When you have assets, you have to use those assets to the best of your ability, and we're not doing that. How about having, let's say that Marne example, have some police officers there. They don't have to have fancy. And again, this is coming from a guy who spent 25 years in the Army and spent 28 months in Iraq living in a tent. So you're not going to make me feel bad for making these guys not having cushy accommodations at work.
Or driving around in big Erie Police Department Humvees or something like that, or other military equipment.
Maybe I misunderstood. He said, "No, I'm not suggesting. I'm saying use bicycles, not Humvees."
Exactly. That's right. I was just reinforcing that point.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we need to do is use the assets we have with proper leadership, with proper management. We can do that.
So, sidebar on police budgets, because I'm looking at line items now. The thing that makes up a really substantial part of the police budget is pensions. And of that 30, what was the number? 37.
37.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of that
37.9.
Of that 37 million, 12 and a half is pensions. And in 2018, that portion that went to pensions was just over 7. It was 7 million in 2018, 7 million and change in 2019, 12.5 million in 2020, 12.6 projected for 2021. Do either of you have any insight of why in the last 2 years the city's obligations to police pensions have increased basically 40%?
Well, you broke up really bad that time, Adam. I could barely understand what you were saying.
Garrett, do you want to maybe repeat that, because you heard me, right?
We have the police budget at, I believe you said 40% of the entire city budget.
Sure.
Something like 40 million, I believe you said.
Yeah, 38.
39, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, Adam, go ahead again there.
Yeah, of that 38 million, something like 12 and a half is pension contributions. And in 2018, actual spending towards police pension contributions was 7.1 million. 2019, it was 7.1 and change million again. 2020, it was 12 and a half. 2021, it's projected to be 12.6. So I'm curious whether either of these folks have any insight and any solutions or proposed solutions as to why the city's obligations to police pension contributions have gone up something like 40% over the last 2 years.
Well, as I understand it, Garrett, obviously you're familiar with PSERS with the school district.
Indeed.
We, in the school district, we have zero control over PSERS. That's a state, mandate. And what happened is, as I understand it, don't quote me because, I don't want to be wrong with this, but for instance, we are required right now, I think we have to put 31% of our gross payroll into PSERS, the school district, right? When I first school board, it was 18%, and it's increased every single year.
It used to be matched by the state back in the day. It used to be matched by the state until
they ran out of money.
Well, till Tom Corbett took over, yes. But yeah, it used to be matched by
There was the big deal that Tom Ridge got involved with. I can't remember all the details, but then when the stock market crashed in 2009, we're still having to pay for that. So I believe that's the same situation with the Erie police pension. It's a requirement from the state because X number of people are retiring and we have to fund that. You can't have that unfunded. So we have to fund it. It's a requirement that we kind of strapped with.
Yeah, but it's not a requirement that we keep on folks who aren't qualified or aren't doing their job. And so I think, again, that's where it comes back to like reviews, accountability for doing what you're supposed to be doing at work. Because if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, if you're getting lawsuits filed against you regularly, you know, you should be off the job and off of the payroll and off of the pension fund. You know, that's a way to make sure that we're not paying folks who don't deserve to be paid. And again, you know, going back to the idea of, okay, what's the minimum number of folks that we have on the force? It's not like Erie is LA or New York City, you know. We need to make sure that our force fits our city. And kind of to go back to the question earlier about, you know, where do we find places in the budget, you know, especially looking at one of the services that takes up most of the room in our budget. When Tom's talking about putting people on the street, walking in the communities, you know, that also ensures that we're not driving we don't need as many vehicles, right? Because that takes up a pretty big cost. I think each vehicle is like something like 34 grand. You know, so less vehicles, less gas driving around in the vehicles. And you know, to your point, Garrett, we don't need a militarized police force in Erie, you know, and the budget for the police department isn't necessarily just reflected in that 38 or $37.9 million because, you know, they'll come to city council and ask for additional funds from different parts of the budget. So we need to make sure that we're being transparent about all the monies that's being spent. You know, community block grants have been used to fund our police force. I don't think that's a good use of block grants. So making sure that, you know, the money that is coming into the community is going back into the community and not just to support a police force that, you know, isn't even having reviews, I think is important.
Understood. Sydney, I want to come back to you here. You had one of your priorities that you said at the beginning of the program was to try to dismantle systemic racism. And as lofty and noble a goal as that is, and I respect and admire that very much, what are some tangible, concrete things that you want to do to affect that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we've heard Mayor Schember say before that he wants to end racism. That is not an achievable goal, especially with a 4-year administration. We need to be reasonable about our goals. So I think that saying something like dismantling systemic racism is more reasonable because you can take that bit by bit and start whittling away in different spots, right? So I think one way, again, is community input. You know, we have the Bayfront Highway that has ripped through our east side, and we took down the McBride Viaduct when community members asked for it to remain. I think listening to community members, because that was a slap in the face. That's a form of systemic racism, to take away people's safe walking path and give them an option where they could be hit. They're going to be exposed to more vehicle fumes. You know, kids walking on those sidewalks worries me. And it's not necessarily white kids, you know, walking over there. There's a lot of Black and brown folks on our east side. And so, you know, making sure that when we have these big projects, we listen to the community input of the folks who live there so that we're respecting their wishes. And I think the same thing's being done with the Parkway now, with the Bayfront. You know, it's like we're okay with putting these highway systems through our poor neighborhoods, to allow folks from the suburbs to get in and out of their, Erie insurance or hospital jobs more quickly. And I think that's a problem. And I think also, doing things like advocating to the school board about how can we come up with better processes to ensure that we are getting more teachers that reflect our students, right? We need teachers who speak a second language. We have a lot of immigrants in our community. We need teachers who are Black and brown so that students, male, Black boys are, what is it called? Disciplined at a higher rate than any other child inside of our schools. If we had more Black male teachers, I think that number would go down. And that's a way to combat systemic racism and not feed into that school to prison pipeline. When we think about housing protections and keeping rents up to code, that's another way, because, it's a lot of the problems that are affecting poor folks are also affecting Black and brown folks. So if we try to attack those problems, we're going to be able to attack systemic racism, right? Just by holding landlords accountable to the standards that we already have. I think that's a big problem, is that we'll have policies in place, but we don't actually follow through with them, right? And so, and that's everything. It goes down to, we talked about, I heard on one of your the social distancing hour for Liz and Chuck, the issue of food deserts came up.
Yes.
Advocating for grocery stores in places in part of town. Why aren't we trying to bring that kind of development into town?
That was going to be my next
necessities.
That was going to be my next question, Sydney. I was going to say, with you brought up the McBride Viaduct, and with the buildings in that area that are all news just came out I think it was this past week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, that they're going to be demolishing those shells of buildings that are there along the bayfront where the McBride Viaduct used to be. What would you propose? Doesn't matter. Like I said, I'm not running for mayor, so it doesn't matter what I think. But what would you propose go into that space? And I'll give that to you, Sydney, first, and then I'll turn over to you, Tom, for that space that is by where the McBride Viaduct used to be, that is going to be now, I would assume, fairly prime real estate for development on the east side.
Although also all probably brownfields with a lot of environmental remediation issues.
That was going to be my next point, yeah. But go ahead there, Sydney. I'll give you a crack at that, and then I'll let Tom answer that same question.
So for me, leaders are vessels for their voices. They're just megaphones for their community. So the first thing we should do is we should go out into the community, 1 2 mile radius around there, and we should say, what do you need? What do you want to see? Do you need another safe walking path over here? Should we, focus? I mean, it's so funny because, the bridge in Frontier, gets shut down, and those community members come out and they get their voices heard. The city was there like that, right? They were trying to attend to those needs and rectify that issue like that. But we need to do that with we need to do that with all of our citizens. And so why not, again, if we're going to save funds and we're going to rearrange it, then why not have a team that goes out and canvasses those neighborhoods, brings the survey to the people? Because not only is it important to have, public forums, but it's important to go to the folks. So why not have a survey say, would you like to see green space? Would you like to see more walkability? Would you like a grocery store? What can we do to advocate for the things that you want in your community? Because at the end of the day, we're here to be of service to you. And that's what, to me, being a good steward looks like. And so, it's not necessarily about what I want, Garrett. It's about what do those people who live, work, play there every single day want in their neighborhood.
Excellent. Tom, what would you think about that area over by where the McBride Viaduct used to be?
Sure, and I agree with Sydney there a lot.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's right. I agree with Sydney there a lot, and that we do need to get community input. And as an example, when going back to the ravine over in Frontier, all of a sudden some lady walks out in the front yard and and like, hey, what are you guys doing out here? Well, we're when they do the 411, the lines painting,
Yeah.
or we're going to put down a road. We're going to put a road right here. Wait, this is my front yard. Had no idea. So that's where Joe talks about being transparent, yet they did not do as city would suggest, or I would suggest, or a reasonable person that's competent would suggest, is, hey, let's get the community input. Do we want to put a road through here? Or do we not want to put a road through here? So they didn't do that. And Joe would say, oh, yeah, well, we didn't know. We didn't know he's waffling, yet he already had a grant and he had plans, and the money was already set aside to build that road. So then he just showed weak leadership by not doing his research initially, and then being weak enough to have a waffle. To go to your question, though, the other day, I was listening to an interview by Mayor Schember, and he said one of the big problems that we have here in Erie is we don't have enough space for companies to come in to provide jobs. Well, we have. When I was a kid, I went right past there every day. I lived over by where used to be Super Duper, where Walmart is now on the east side.
Oh.
I had to walk from there over the viaduct, over the tracks, all that for years. And Zern had hundreds of employees there. Well, if we have that space that's available, it just seems to me Erie needs industry. We need jobs. We need family-sustaining jobs. And this would be a nice space for us to be able to recruit companies to come in and build. We have to provide those jobs. And we, of course, have to tear down some of the dilapidated old factories. This isn't something new. This is something that we should absolutely look into. For instance, that neighborhood there needs jobs. And that's why we're located, our business at 25th and Nash, because the people who live around there need jobs. Could you imagine if we could recruit small businesses, whether it's an incubator and growing, or whether somebody else to come in and have a real business there? Think what that would do to develop that whole community in that area, and how much would those houses, the residents that live in those houses there, appreciate being able to walk to a good family-sustaining job right there. That'd be great.
So you talk about locating Stanganelli's where it's located because that's a neighborhood that needs jobs. How much of your hiring is actually within the neighborhood?
Probably 80%.
Okay.
Come by our shop tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning. Now we have I'm guessing between 35 and 40 employees, depending, right? I'd say our first shift, we have 30 guys. You're going to see probably 5, maybe 6 cars there. One's going to be mine. One will be my wife's. One will be my mother's. And then the other 3, we have at least 3 other cars, give or take. Almost everybody else walks to work. And we're proud to do that. I could tell you right now, within 2 city blocks, we have to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We must have 8 people that are employed that live within 2 city blocks. Stretch that out to 6 blocks, we probably have 15. Stretch that out a little bit further. That's just the way it goes.
I think that brings up a good point, though, that we have to be mindful that not everybody has transportation to work as well, especially on the east side, and I think that's another problem where things like, building more roads or highway-esque roadways on the east side is an issue, because it's like these people aren't necessarily using those roadways. They, not just on the east side, but in our whole city, we need to make it more bikeable, more walkable, more pedestrian friendly, having spaces that are pedestrian spaces only, so that the folks who don't necessarily have a vehicle to work, there's a route for them. And then having those kind of routes are attractive to businesses, because they're places that people can stop along the way, or walk to work kind of thing. And so I think it's really important that if we want to be an equitable city, we have to do that by thinking about the design that we have for our city, the city planning that we have, and being really thoughtful again about the development that we bring in, and not just having just jobs come in. Tom, you're talking about the space where the Walmart is being a different market beforehand, right? Walmart is notorious for having poor wages. So we need to be thoughtful about, okay, is it worth it to have a Walmart, or should we think about having more small markets? Should we think about supporting these markets that are here and working with them to bring in produce from local farms rather than just bring in another super center kind of thing? So we have to be thoughtful about the kind of jobs and the development that we're bringing in to ensure that it's supporting folks rather than predatory even.
And as we're recruiting, as you talked about recruiting businesses to come into that space that's where the McBride Viaduct used to be, we got to be wary so that we don't want to be recruiting a bunch of Bush Industries that come in here for a few years,
like IRG,
and then
or even like IRG Plastics, places that are actually going to be detrimental to that area, put people at more risk, because I don't know about you, but we already have a problem with microplastics in our Great Lakes. We don't need any more because it's not going to just hurt the lakes. It's going to hurt the people who live around those places. So we need to be really thoughtful.
Now, if we're recruiting, green energy and tech jobs into that area, that's one thing that I think most of the community can get behind, rather than a business that is coming to so that they can locate to get a decade's worth of tax-free,
yep.
tax-free, giveaways.
And I want to come back to the tax-free giveaways, but Tom was talking about small businesses earlier, and we do have some programs within the city that like match funds, or the flagship program. So with things like that, you have to actually not only have a business plan, but you have to have startup capital yourself. And then when things gets going, then they'll give you money to make sure that you're all good. You're not going to take the money and run, or the business isn't going to fail. But the thing is a lot of folks don't have funds already. And so, this is a really advantageous time for our city because of the American Rescue Plan money coming in, where we could really do some things to ensure that we're supporting small businesses, helping folks get off the ground, making sure that, the New Deal back with FDR was great for helping folks get back on their feet. But at times, it wasn't always good for folks who were, people of color, let's say. I think of redlining. That was funded by our government, right, through the New Deal. And so we need to make sure that with this, almost like advent of a New Deal era with American Rescue Plan money, we are inviting people into the fold who have been forgotten over the years and making sure that their needs are being addressed and we're uplifting folks. I think that's really important, and it doesn't always seem to be part of the conversation. Again, when race comes into the conversation with the current administration, it's like, we're going to end racism, and it's like, y'all, we got to be more thoughtful and more realistic about what's going on here and how we can approach it.
Or at least more specific in like, solving racism is nice, but here are 3 solid, concrete, tangible steps that, I, candidate X, am going to put into place if I'm elected mayor to do X, Y, and Z. And lots of times we hear candidates speak in vague platitudes about ending racism and, things along that nature, but there's very little in the way of small, simple, tangible things that can be done. And
so Garrett, to your point, I agree. I hear politicians talk about this stuff all day long, and I'm really not a politician. Maybe by virtue of running for politics, yes, but I'm not that guy.
Well, I gotta tell you, there, Tom, that whole running government thing sounds pretty politician-y.
Yeah,
but
I get it.
I digress.
Yeah. But we at our business, we practice it. We don't have policies where we don't talk about it. We live it on a daily basis. We employ people of color that are our neighbors. And it just works. We just have a great culture in our business, and I'd love to tell you that every one of our fettuccine is made by some little old Italian lady. That's not the way it works. The odds are the next time you have some of our products is probably made from a person of color, because we have a very high percentage. I believe Erie's population might be 20%.
Less than that, 15-ish.
15-ish,
Yeah.
But I think when you start comparing all peoples of color, I think it's something of like 20-ish, give or take.
Yeah,
give or take. We probably have almost 50% of our employees, and it's been that way for as long as we've had the business, because those are the people that live in our neighborhood, and it works out well for us. So we don't have some blanket crazy policy. We practice it every single day.
I understand, but as a mayor, though, you do have to put in specific policies, because unlike the example you use as your business, unlike that business of 40 employees and such, that is much smaller. The city government does need those. For you to say that, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but for you to say that, well, I run my business like this, and we don't have to have such policies because of the way I run my business. And that is fine and great and dandy. But as mayor of the city of Erie, you are going to have to put in policies. You are going to have to, if that is what the end game is that you're trying to achieve.
Right. And to tell you, certainly because you're a school teacher, I'm sure you're aware, we have to create our own employees, if you will. We have to be able to create a plan and a method to provide people of color the opportunity to work for the city. For instance, in this city school district, we have the safety. What do they call that now? The safety services at Erie High now. What do they call that? Can't remember. The safety services. It's a class where it's fire, it's EMT, and police training.
Protective services.
Pardon me?
I believe it's the Protective Services Department.
You're right. That's Protective Services. So we have that program. So this way we can start to raise
fire, paramedic, EMT,
all of that. You're right. Sure. We have the same thing with school teachers. Here you're a school teacher, and I absolutely agree. We need to have more people of color sitting in those classrooms for a number of reasons. I'm preaching to the choir here, but the way we're doing that though is we have a relationship now with Edinburgh. So we have a track. So this way our students have the opportunity to take these educational classes through Edinburgh. And when they graduate high school, they'll have X number of credits. I want to say it's like 8 credits. So they're well on their way to being tracked to become a teacher. It's a win-win. One, we need more school teachers, regardless, male, female, or anywhere else. You know that. We need more school teachers. And we can have our own teachers. This way we don't have to recruit from out of town. We can keep, for a number of reasons, we can give our people that need the jobs. We have people that know Erie. We give those people jobs, and we can keep the finances rolling in Erie. So this way, we have some kid that wants to become a school teacher or fireman, and we can train them how to do that. Then they're going to stay in Erie. So it's going to decrease the brain drain and the flight out of Erie.
But Tom, I got to say though, we had a 3-year pay freeze. It's hard to recruit teachers to come to your district when there's a 3-year pay freeze.
You got a raise this year.
Yes, but I lost 3 years of pay increases. There's a 3-year freeze there.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Now we're getting into school district issues.
I'm just saying, but along those lines, you were talking about cutting spending, and that was one of the ways that spending was cut in the school district by having a 3-year pay freeze.
Well, if you remember, we couldn't even.
We lost a lot of very good teachers that either went to other districts or retired early or other means, and now we're in a situation where we do need teachers, and we are trying to get those teachers.
Sure, but if you remember, we couldn't even make payroll at one point. Remember, we were going to ship out all of our high school students out to the county.
Because that was when things got serious, wasn't it? That was when the shit hit the fan, wasn't it?
Oh, it was crazy, man.
I mean,
for the first several years,
all of a sudden, everybody was solving the problem then.
Oh, you know why? You tell me why. I'll tell you what the real
I will
answer
tell you
is.
exactly why. Because people in the suburbs and in the county didn't want the City of Erie School District students coming into their precious classrooms and ruining their classes.
So I was at
Exactly, because that was all over social media, and that was all that the people from the county were saying was they can't do this to us. They can't come in and soil our
that's
precious
right.
school
Yeah.
district with their city
I was
kids.
at a
They can't
grocery
send
store one
those
time,
types out
Garrett.
to
It
Fairview.
was atrocious, but it got everybody
Yeah, I
thought.
was at. It was so. And this is how ignorant people are. I was at a grocery store one time, and I'm dressed like from work. So I've got beat up old army pants on, and nobody knows who I am. And I overhear the same conversation being had, and here's a woman saying, "Can you believe this? They want to ship these kids out to my school district. I live out in General McLean for a reason." And then she proceeded to say, "And I'm an Erie school teacher. I don't want my kids that I teach with going to school with my kids that are mine." And I said, "Excuse me, ma'am. You're really starting to offend me here. How can you honestly have that conversation?" Well, then I got to the point where I didn't want to, really go down that road. But we have to be able to break that cycle.
Well, I just want to follow up with you, Tom. An email you sent out earlier this year, all right, that you sent out earlier this year said, I see the larger issue being that families do not value education, nor is there a set of core values within our Erie lower socioeconomic population. And I got to tell you, Tom, that smacks of disdain for the entire constituency that you're hoping will vote for you for mayor.
And here's my issue with this, and this is my experience with that.
These are the people you're going to be serving, Tom.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And here's the point. I have been on ballpark 100 expulsions. I've had conversations with many parents who their children have not even showed up to school. You get every time you're in an expulsion committee or a hearing, you get a homeschool visitor report. I'm sure you've probably been involved with those at some point.
Absolutely.
I have spoken to many parents. I'm not saying all of them. That would be a crazy thing to say that the lower income people don't value education. I grew up as
but you did say that.
But it was taken out of context here. I guess my point, and I'm not the most eloquent speaker. I know that. So
it was in your email, though, Tom. It was in the email you sent out.
Sure, right. I grew up a low income person, and my family, my mother in particular, because it's pretty much a single mom type of situation. She valued education and made sure that I was able to get the proper education, mainly go through the military, getting school and all those things. She valued education. We didn't miss school. But when I am at these expulsion hearings and these parents tell me, hey, this 12-year-old kid who we're in day 60 of school's already been absent 25 times, has been tardy 52 times, they will tell me, hey, it's not my job to get Johnny to school. He can do it himself. And I try to tell, I said, Mom, it's your job to care about your child. It's not just the resource officer. It's not just the teacher. It's not just the principal. Everybody else that's in the expulsion hearing. So we care about your child. You have to do the same thing. Hey, you know what? I don't care. I've heard many times, it's his job to get him there. He can figure it out. And that's not the right answer. We have to make sure that our families care about education, because if you want to end poverty, the way you do that is, in my opinion, is through education. And we have to have that culture that education is a good thing that people value.
So as mayor, what kind of policies are you going to be putting in place? And now I'm talking specific now, Tom. What kind of policies are you going to be putting in place to try to reverse this trend that you say is afflicting many of the constituents that you're hoping will vote for you? What kind of policies are you going to put in place to help parents who you think don't have the values to instill those values?
Well, again, I really don't. I probably should have worded that a little bit better. Again,
I'll say
probably I agree to that. It is what it is, But I do believe that we in the city, through education, through working in collaboration with the school district. For instance, I've been in the school board for 8 years. Guess how many times we've had the mayor sitting in one of our school board meetings? 0. It hasn't happened. And they might work a little bit on taxing. We might work a little bit on some logistics, but we don't work in collaboration. And we need to do this. We serve the same community, our students, our taxpayers' children. We need
So,
to work together.
as mayor, are you going to go
As
to the school
mayor-
board meetings?
I didn't hear you.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
we were over top of each other. So as mayor, are you going to go to school board meetings?
Absolutely. I've been doing it for the last 8 years. I wouldn't say
Well, it's
I'm going
because
to
you were on school board for the
go
last
to
8
them on
years.
occasion. Pardon me?
I said that's because you were on school board for the last 8 years. It would have been a sad party without you.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. But we still, for instance, when we were having the discussion about LERTA, you know what that is, right? We're
sure. Yep.
on board with LERTA.
Yes.
So Erie School District being the largest taxing body, I thought to myself, hey, this county, the city, the school district, we're all dealing with this issue together. How about we get everybody together and kind of talk about it and kind of figure things out? So I called up Mayor Schember and I said, hey Joe, how about we get the city council together, the county council together, the school board together? How about just chat? I said, how about we go down to like the tap house, have a couple of beers, get to know each other, and kind of work this out a little bit to see how we can work with this collaboratively. I called up the county too, and said, well, let me think about it. Good idea. Let's think about it. So I called up a second time to kind of, marshal this together. Well, no, we're not interested. And it never happened. Like sometimes we need to work together. That's something we need to do better.
Yeah, I agree. And which is why I'd like to see not only, mayors or city council people at, school board meetings or zoning board hearings, but, also I'd like to see school board members at city council meetings. And if they're not having an opportunity to sit down with folks outside of these meetings, then coming to be citizens to be heard and speaking to council, about, hey, because I know like for school board and for city council, you just send an email or you sign up online and then you can come in virtually to citizens to be heard until we can open up city hall and do it in person. I think it needs to go both ways. And, to kind of go back to the topic at hand earlier about the quote, about lower socioeconomic folks. I too grew up in a lower I had, free lunch at collegiate because my mom is a single mom. And so, I know that she'd be really disappointed in me if I were to say that, lower socioeconomic folks don't have core values and don't care about education. I mean, especially my dad is a college administrator, baby of 13, first to go to college. Same with my mom, first to go to college. Both grew up in poorer households, but education was always important to both of them. So I do think it's a smack in the face. And especially when, we're talking about, we bring into the fold the idea that students don't want to come and, to school, and their parents don't want to, support them getting to school. Well, the thing is that this comment was made after an ask to reduce or eliminate the police budget within the school district's budget. And quite frankly, a good way to mitigate truancy issues is to have counselors who can help to address why exactly aren't you getting to school, Tommy? Are you missing the bus? Are you not getting breakfast? And what is going on that's making you not want to come to school and participate, right? To try to figure out what's going on. I myself had a truancy letter junior year of high school, I think it was. If I had somebody come to me and say, Sydney, you're good at school. You like school. What the hell is going on with you? And
rather than we're gonna send you to juvie because you're not going to school, or we're gonna
you're gonna send the police officers
give your parents
to
a misdemeanor because you're not going to school.
Yeah, if we know that there are parents out there in our school district that aren't helping to take ownership of our kids' education, then we need to step in and figure out what our role can be to mediate that, rather than, again, it happens with parking tickets, it happens with quality of life. We just punish people, instead of actually look at the issue and try to address it and try to find a way to ensure that it doesn't continue to be an issue. So, yeah, that's important for me.
Speaking of school board, Zacharias Sharif in the comments. Shout out to Zacharias Sharif. How you doing, buddy? And speaking of school board, Tom, you're obviously leaving your position on school board behind in order to run for mayor, or, leaving it behind at the time that you're running for mayor. Any thoughts on the current slate of people who are running for school board? Anybody you want to
Are you
particularly
endorsing anyone for school board,
Yeah,
Mr.
are you
Spagel?
endorsing
Is what
anyone
he's
for school
asking,
board?
I believe. Is there anyone you'd like to endorse?
For whatever that's worth, is there anybody you like, anybody who's impressed you, anybody who you want to take the opportunity to throw your support behind?
I personally don't know. The only one that I think, pardon me? I know of a couple people, but I really don't know anyone that I would say that I'm going to personally endorse, because I don't know the other people that I don't know, if that makes sense.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. So I can't say that one's better than
those races as much as you have your own, because you've been running your own, and I get that. I understand.
Yeah. So I don't know some people. I know that we're very fortunate in the last couple of years. We have much better representation on board than we've had in years. We've had a pretty good school board, I think, in the past. So right now on school board, we have a couple ex-school employees, which is nice to have their experience. We have John Harkins, who's been around, 40 years or whatever it is.
Too long. Too long is how
good
long.
to have. Pardon me?
I said too long is how long.
Yeah, it's crazy. But that institutional knowledge goes a long way, and this guy knows.
I was just about to say, Harkins, you can say what you want about Mr. Harkins, but he is a very strong advocate for the students and the families.
Oh, he's wonderful.
That the school district serves.
Talking about institutional knowledge, you guys are losing a lot of people on school board this year. You're losing yourself,
Indeed.
obviously. You're losing Dr. Titus.
Angela.
You're losing Angela. You're losing Dr. Titus. All of whom are friends of the program, and all of whom I've been super impressed by.
Likewise.
And that's losing that much institutional knowledge for something like a school board all in one shot is that's got an opportunity to be a hardship, I guess. So I guess what
But Adam,
Go on.
Angela is running for county council.
Yes.
Dr. Titus is running for county executive.
Yes.
So there's an and even if those folks don't win those races, they're in our community.
Sure.
They're not going anywhere.
They've got institutional knowledge to the next level that they go to, or to the next endeavor they go to.
Exactly. And it's always somebody that you can reach out to and speak with. You know what I mean? And still bring that knowledge in. And, even if Mr. Harkins left, it's not wrong to reach out and say, can you come to a meeting? Can you speak as an expert, on this?
Well, I guess I want to circle back around. I want to circle back around and say, I guess what my next question is, how does Tom Spagel attending school board meetings as mayor improve the values that you think need to be improved with the parents throughout the city that you're going to be serving?
Sure. Well, I guess the answer to that would be, we have to take a holistic approach to solving our community's issues.
What does that mean?
Well, that means the city needs to work directly with the city school district for a number of reasons, in a number of ways. And one would be budgeting. We have to take a look at our budget. Maybe we can share some expenses to decrease, maybe share some of our activities so we can decrease some of the expenses, so we can hire more of the counselors.
Blue coats, more counselors.
All of it. And that Blue Coat program is a great program, and I can't remember exactly how much we spend on that, but we need more of that. That's what we need to do. You talk about community policing. That is absolutely a perfect example of community policing at a very reasonable cost. Those are the types of issues that we need to work together, because we the only reason why I got involved with the school board way back when was that I was in the PTA doing all that stuff for a long time, and I realized I care so much about the city. The only way we're really going to get out of this this systemic socioeconomic challenges that we have here is through education, and that's what I've been trying and dedicated so many tons and tons of hours and weeks and months and everything else with education, and that's how we are going to improve Erie. And so we really need to work collaboratively as much as we possibly can.
Go ahead, Adam. I thought you were going to ask something. I was going to jump in, but I'll let you go.
No, go ahead. My thing is the next thing.
All right, so then I guess I will wrap up my end and toss it over here to Adam. But as I understand it, the tangible things you would be advocating for is some collaborative, possibly working with the school district to increase and expand the Blue Coats program through the mayor. I'm not sure what the authority of the mayor's office would be in that capacity, but I'm all an advocate for. I don't know how I'm not exactly sure how you voted when it came time to increase funding in the school district for Blue Coats and counselors and school nurses and mental health programs, because I was so taken aback by that email that, it's that's where I'm at in as far as the mayoral race is. I don't hear tangible things. I hear a lot of, and no offense, Tom, I hear a lot of like buzzwords like holistic and things like that, rather than
which has come up in the comments too. Like, so what does holistic mean anyway?
Well, you have to have it's not one single idea, one single cure-all. You take this magic pill and everything's good to go.
No, I know what the word holistic means, but yeah.
9 yards. If we need, right? You guys there?
Yep,
we're here.
Connection, trying. Yeah, right. But you guys are breaking up. I see.
Understood.
Are you guys there?
Yep, we're here.
You got it. Okay, it broke up there. So,
That's
for
right.
instance, in order for us to have better jobs, we have to have educated people. In order to have better jobs, we need to attract better businesses to come to Erie. And in order to attract them, we have to have certainly some tax incentives within reason. We have to have decent parks. We have to have decent streets. We have to really take a look at all the many facets and improve upon it all. There's no one big manage or one magic cure-all. And that's what we have to approach step by step, neighborhood by neighborhood, and get Erie squared away.
But kind of for me, I'm just kind of wondering, you talk about like as mayor, going to school board meetings. I haven't made all city council meetings by any stretch of the imagination. Quite frankly, I think that they should be, on like a Saturday morning, so that folks can get to them more easily than on a Wednesday morning or 7:30 at night. But that's another topic. But Tom, I don't know how many I saw you there and coming again to Citizens to be Heard if you can't get an audience with the council members at a different time. And it's like, when we think about, okay, the Blue Coats are great, but what money are we spending again to have counselors, to have more Blue Coats? Why aren't there more programs that are connecting students with the local colleges to educate them for jobs in the area? Because it's not just teaching. We could do more to have more connectivity between our school district and the employers in the area. Why not, set people up not only with teaching, but with nursing at Edinburgh, so that they could come back and work at the hospitals that have pilot programs, right? If people are going to be benefiting from things in the city, we need a benefit for our kids, right? And so, my thing is that talking about holistic solutions is really great. Talking about collaborative efforts, talking about building relationships is really great. But, Mr. Spagel, I'm kind of curious to know how you've done that since 2013 being on school board.
The main thing is money. And Garrett will tell you the reason why they didn't have a pay raise is we quite frankly didn't have the money. So my first task, and I was quite literally knocking on doors down at Harrisburg with Jay Badams at the time, with Bob Casello at the time, and with Tim Walker, the attorney, knocking on doors.
I was down there marching too, Tom.
Yeah, knocking on doors. Please, sir, could we have some money? Please, sir, could we have some money? Please, ma'am, could we have some money? We didn't have enough payroll. I mean, we didn't have enough money. We had vendors in Erie that we owed as little as $500 or $600 that we weren't even paying. We didn't have any money. So if you ask what I did, we were able to secure through our relationships $14 extra million per year in perpetuity. That's one step. Two, we were able to lobby as much as we possibly could to change the fair funding formula. Without going into all those, Garrett, you probably know that. I don't know if the other two do. The way it works is for a long time, well, I don't want to get into all that stuff. Now the fair funding formula has been changed, so we're getting more money. It's crazy when you take a look at Erie School District, how much we get per child versus just go over to Girard to see what they get per child. It is embarrassingly horrible of how many more dollars they get than us, let alone when you go out to some of these schools. I was at it's called the PSBA, Pennsylvania School Board Association conference. And here we were trying to just pay our teachers. I mean, quite literally pay them because we were living paycheck to paycheck. And I get some other woman bitching and complaining because they didn't have enough money to improve their drama wing. And I said, ma'am, we live in whole different realities here. We're just hoping to pay our teachers. Now, we've been able to correctly fund us, and we're in the best financial position, Erie School District's in the best financial position today than they've been in decades. And it's kind of worked out well. And that is through proper strategic planning. And what we did, just as you would say, Cindy, we went through, when we were doing our strategic planning, Garrett, do you remember how many of those meetings that you attended?
You know At least about? 2 of them.
They were. I want to say they were monthly.
The public ones.
Oh, I couldn't tell you how many I attended. I honestly couldn't tell you.
They were monthly.
Pardon me?
I believe they were monthly.
Oh, we had them for a better part of a year.
Yeah,
we had them all over. It was a great idea. So we went to the community and said, what do you need and what do you want? Because those aren't necessarily the same thing.
Right.
When we figured it out, we have a whole long talk about a holistic plan, a very good plan going forward, created ourselves. We didn't have to go to the outside, out-of-town professionals to come in to give us all the consulting fees for hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. We created this ourselves, and we're working forward. So now, for instance, when we have the COVID money coming in, we have to work in a short period of time to get the money spent. But fortunately, we already have a plan. So if we want to get the ventilation systems organized, we already have the architectural plans because we're able to have enough foresight to figure it all out and have that in place. And that's what we've done, and it worked out very well. So you ask what we've done. That is exactly what we've done. Is we got the funding in place because, unfortunately, you have to have money to be able to give the pay raises. You have to have money to hire those special ed teachers that we need. We have to have money to hire the translators that we need. I was in a classroom at East. This is back when it was East High School. I was in this class, and it was a chemistry class. Chemistry, don't ask me to do chemistry right now because I'm not going to do well.
I did not do well in Mr. Clancy's chemistry class at Cathedral Prep. No, I did not.
Ask me what ask me what my degree is in.
Adam, what's your degree in?
Chemical engineering.
Yeah. Adam's the chem guy.
Hey guys.
Yeah.
So, so in this class that I was in, the chemistry was being taught in English. And then the chemistry teacher was actually teaching to about 4 or 5 students because this one spoke Spanish. This one spoke, I think that there were at least 4 languages being spoken. It was Russian, Spanish, I think Nepalese, and I think Arabic. So then he was teaching to those 4, and then they would turn around and reteach the information to their own little cells, if you will. We need to do a better job than that.
That is a great segue to my next question. Erie as a center, as a hub for immigrants, as mayor, for both of you, Sydney, I'll let Tom go first, and then we'll go to you, Sydney. What programs or what policies? Like I said, I'm looking for tangible, not vagaries, not buzzwords, but what kind of program does Tom Spagel have in mind to harness the immigrant population that we have and help utilize that as a driving force in the job creation? Because I'm telling you right now, you won't find a more robust job creating sector than the immigrant population that is coming into our city. So, Tom, what kind of immigrant programs, or what kind of programs centered around the new immigrant population are in the works for you if you are elected mayor?
Sure. Well, you broke up there, but I assume that you're asking how would we effectively utilize the immigrant labor force? Is that what you're asking?
In a nutshell, yes.
Okay. So, for instance, we have a working relationship at our business with the International Institute. And we've hired
organization. Fabulous.
Throughout the years, we have had a number of employees. Right now, we still have at least one. We call him Ben too, and he's been working with us for several years now. And we need to continue working with the International Institute and the other program or the other organizations that service the immigrant community coming in, and have a direct pipeline with both the state as far as the unemployment office to that really capitalizes what jobs are available, and get the pipeline to the employers. Right now, there are so many help wanted signs throughout the city, wherever you go, and it's a big challenge for most employers right now is getting enough employees. Now, these are guys. I'm talking to some of these people that are they're looking for welders that are getting paid, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year. We have to have the pipeline through education to get the immigrants properly educated. And I don't care whether they're 12 years old or 40 years old, they still have to be educated. And whether it's a skill, whether it's a language skill or a tangible skill, get them educated to get them into the workforce. Because we have found that they're a dedicated group. They are people that are wanting to live the American dream, and we have to be able to help them. So the way to do that is having a program where to get them educated, and we can do that. That's exactly what I'm talking about, having a collaborative effort between the school district in Erie, the city of Erie, is we have great educational resources in Erie. How about we train some of those people in with our resources to get them to the employers that need them so much.
So, sorry, Sydney, I'll get to you in just one moment. So, as mayor, what tangible program would you champion or what policy would you champion? I mean, beyond just, and I understand, Tom, the whole idea of working together with the International Institute or MCRC, the Multicultural Resource Center, I believe is MCRC, right?
Center.
That's yeah. So, like, beyond saying we're gonna, as mayor, I'll work with those groups. What is, like, are you, as mayor, are you going to spearhead a program to work with Erie High's welding training, because they have a whole welding training center there at Erie High? Sure. Or, I mean, like, I'm not trying to give you the answer. As a teacher, that would be.
Well, but that's what I'm saying is.
But I mean,
when the city of Erie works with the school district, doing what Sydney would say is you have to find out what the community wants, what do they need, and then come up with a plan for everybody, and just reach out to those various organizations, reach out to those individuals, and reach out to the school district, and sit down at the table and come up with a practical policy, a practical plan that works. Of course, when you're mayor, you're not the dictator. You're going to do the school district. You're going to do this International Institute, but you have to sit at the table Let's work together and figure it out. That's what we have to do. And that goes back to the relationship building that I was referring to.
Sydney, how would you harness the immigrant labor force here that is influxed into the city? What kind of tangible policy would you enact as Mayor Zimmermann?
Yeah, it's not only important to make sure people are trained for the jobs available, make sure that they're connected. And I think that places like the Multicultural Resource Center or the International Institute, they are doing a good work with our immigrant community. So how can we support them? How can we ensure that they have the funds they need to continue doing the work that they're doing, right? So making sure that we get money to them is important, especially with the American Rescue Plan money coming to Erie. But I also think that it's important to make sure that we realize that our immigrant population does not always need to be trained. There are highly skilled folks who come to this country, and have to take jobs that they wouldn't normally take, right? You can have degrees and just not be at that right position.
Well,
right. So not only
back in my days working in manufacturing back in the early 2000s, this was in the big wave of Bosnian immigration to Erie. I had people in the Bosnian community who were engineers, chemists, whatever in Bosnia, and were coming to Erie and were forklift drivers in Erie just because of language barrier, because they were not able to do their profession, their trade in America. So
right. And sometimes that's licensing. Sometimes that's like if you're a doctor, making sure that you hit all the right marks in America versus the country that you came from. Sometimes that's like you said, not speaking the language. And so if we find that we need more funding to support English as a second language for adult learners, then then we put funding towards that. I think it's also important to realize that, I feel like our government could do a much better job of cataloging the needs, especially within the business community, right? So reaching out, saying, what jobs do you have available? What jobs can't you fill because people have a training gap? And then making sure that we not only catalog it, but post it in an open space so that people can come and see, oh, I'm qualified for this job over here. Instead of having, a listings for WobTech, and then, a listing for our school district, and then a listing for a grocery store, bringing all these different levels to one spot where people can easily access them, and then doing it in their language as well to ensure that people can, again, access the information easily. And if the issue is English as a second language, then putting up on our website, hey, we have English as a second language classes that are being offered through the International Institute. Please contact so and so that you can get set up with an appointment.
Well, apart from the English as a second language thing, which I agree is an issue, how do we empower the immigrant community to, many of whom had professional jobs where they were coming from, and then they get to Erie, and Erie has all these programs, and all these programs are great, but they get to Erie and they go through all these programs and they basically become menial labor in Erie. Like how?
So yeah, I think
how
the
as a
reverse
city,
too, right?
How as a city do we empower them to step back into that professional job and the lifestyle that professional job allows them, rather than working minimum wage or slightly above minimum wage because they are part of this immigrant community. How do we empower them to be more than the bottom of the barrel, more than the lowest of the low in Erie?
Again, I think that it can go both ways. Not only can we catalog what are the needs of our business owners, but we can also catalog, these are people who are looking for jobs and these are the positions that they're looking for, right? We need to be able to connect folks better. We need to be able to be the conduit.
Yeah, and that's more than just a job board or a website or there's the local, here's a job center, and there's is there going to be a department? Is there going to be a bureau? Is there going to be a position created whose job it is to do those things? Because as mayor, you're going to have a whole lot on your plate, and
I would agree with that.
Just fire one cop and you can hire a whole other guy.
But we don't always
right.
have to do it in-house. You can say, hey, International Institute, do you have somebody who's already working on something like this? If not, how do we get you grant funding so that you can monitor this for us?
The Pennsylvania Unemployment Office is so cumbersome. It has been that way for years.
That's by design, Tom. That's by design.
Oh, it's a horrible. You talk about built-in inefficiencies. It's asinine in my opinion.
Years of state Republican legislatures have made it a very difficult task by design. That's
broken on purpose.
Yes, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I honestly don't know those details of that, but I do know it's cumbersome and it shouldn't be that difficult. That's one of the things that I've said in the past is very simple, and I agree with what Sydney's saying, is having a job board. It is not that difficult to have a list. These are all the jobs in Erie. These are all the jobs, or these are all the people that want jobs. And it's tough, even as us as employers, just to find employees. You have to go on Indeed. It's kind of a nuisance, to be honest. It should be as easy as a list of all these people want a job and all these people have jobs that are wanting to fill. It's not difficult to do, particularly with technology. It should be a relatively easy task within the economic development group in the city hall. It's not that tough.
Adam, I was going to defer to you there. I was going to let you take the next one.
So Sydney, we've been Facebook friends for a while because I'm the good commie pinko kind of person who likes to hang out with people like you. As you were first dabbling with putting your petitions out there and considering running, you kind of made no bones about the fact that probably not going to win, don't have a whole lot of illusions of actually being mayor. And this is a couple months ago, and obviously situations have changed, but what's short of becoming mayor, which obviously would be great, and obviously that's what you're hoping to do. Short of that, what's your goal in this? What does success look like? What do you want to accomplish by having run in this election?
Yeah, I think, like I've said since the beginning, like you mentioned, I know what my name recognition is compared to these two gentlemen. I know what money my campaign has spent.
Sure.
I think I've spent all of $30 to get leaflets printed, and that was only when my printer decided to stop working. Other than that, they were printed at home. Because it's really important to keep money in people's pockets, which is why we're just trying to have folks pass the word on, committing to speak with people, and Adam, Garrett, if you like what you hear, I hope that you commit to speak with 5 loved ones about why they should vote for Sydney Zimmermann for mayor. But again, the point is to get the issues out on the table, get them right in the spotlight, where they can't be avoided, where they can't be pushed aside, because folks have to talk about them. They're out in the open. And by doing that, I'm hoping that, like when Mr. Spagel says that he supports a citizens review board, and, and if Mr. Spagel is the one who wins the primary, well, at least now we have that out in the open and we're able to come back to it at a later date, right? So that we can hold people accountable to their responses to having these issues out in the open. So that is my primary goal, is to make sure that they get talked about, and the responses that are made, people can be held accountable to them if they're desirable.
So Tom has obviously been receptive to talking about these things because he's here on our show on a Sunday night drinking beer with us, and thanks.
I would if my wife let me. She wouldn't let me drink any more beer. She said it's unprofessional. They are. Why can't I?
This is an unprofessional show.
It's a pretty laid back environment here in the social distancing variety hour.
Yeah.
We have a segment called "What Are You Drinking Tonight?" So that's.
So Tom is obviously receptive. Tom's clearly for some value of one of us is one of us. But do you feel like you're getting through to Mayor Schember and to his administration and making these things a topic of conversation within the administration, or is it just a conversation that those of us, including Tom, who are on the outside, are having amongst ourselves and hoping that they notice?
Are you moving the needle?
Yeah. I would say that just by having things on like public record, that we are starting to move the needle, especially when, especially when there are things out there. My mind is starting to go to like the LGBTQIA plus community, right? And having the responses that we did from the Erie Gay News questionnaire, right? And being able to see that Mayor Schember is saying that he doesn't want to institute benefits for domestic partners, boiling it down to money. And for me, it's like, hey, we need to ensure that everybody gets the same benefits regardless of their sexual orientation.
Well, and then over the summer, you had Tyler Titus, essentially rage quitting the the mayor's LGBT advisory council over the way he had handled the Black Lives Matter protests and.
And so I think things like, stating that there aren't reviews in public during the primary, is something to hold the mayor accountable to. But without having that conversation and putting that knowledge out into the community, we're not going to get a lot of change. But I think by just how many times in the last week I've been asked about policing in the community, at least 2 or 3, I think that's super. And I don't know if we would have been integrating that into our mayoral conversations if it wasn't a topic that was continuously brought up by, at least myself.
Well,
and so,
we definitely wouldn't have been talking about it if he was running unopposed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
None of these issues would be.
Yeah.
There wouldn't be a conversation because it'd be unopposed, and there wouldn't be a conversation to have for the primary. That would be a conversation that would be held.
So we'd be talking to Carl Anderson. I did finally get my flyer this week, by the way.
I did too. I got 2 of them. I got one for me and one for my wife. Yeah.
Oh, that's sexy. Yeah, he doesn't be there. He doesn't know that girl or that girl.
Pretending to be there for you,
either
Carl.
of those kids. But that's neither here nor there.
I hope you all caught the opening segment.
Yeah, well,
I did not. I heard my wife told me that you guys are funnier than hell about that, though.
Maybe you could show it at the end there.
I can throw it up. Yeah, I can throw it up again.
You got to bookend the program with friends of social distancing.
So this is a random silly question. Whatever local race you want, besides yourself. Tom, who do you want people to vote for? For whatever.
You pick the office.
I guess that's a good question.
Who's someone
I'm pretty impressed with on the city council is Chuck Nelson.
Okay.
That guy's a smart son of a gun.
Yeah, Chuck was on the program a couple of weeks ago.
He
bought me a 6-pack and dropped it off on my doorstep, by the way, which is something no other guest of the show has ever done. So points to Chuck Nelson for that.
Got it. Well, I'll drop you. How about if I remember, because it's only like midnight whatever it is. Try to drop off some pepperoni balls at your door. How's that sound?
I can be bought for pepperoni balls.
In Georgia, that would be against the law, Tom. In Georgia, that would be against
probably
the law.
is in Pennsylvania too. Again, I don't know what I'm doing with
That
those.
would be a crime in Georgia for feeding or water or food or drink.
So Tom, total sidebar. My our favorite cake bakers have been renting space from you guys, the Flower Kitchen kids. Chet and Amy, how do you feel about those guys?
You're breaking up, but you talk about some class people, and they are artists is what they do. I wouldn't even call them bakers, artists. There's a big difference. The cakes they make are phenomenal, and it's like I'm a baker. These guys are artists. A big difference. They do a great
job. Sydney stepped out for a second. Sydney will be right back. Yeah, they absolutely are. We're really happy we found them. They're making our wedding cake for us. So we've been having a lot of fun. We met them, and the first time that we got together with them, we spent like 3 hours nerding out about food and flavors, and we've basically done that every time we've gotten together ever since. So, good people, and they're the only reason that I know where your plant is, because we came over to pick up some cake from them a few weeks ago.
Oh, very good. And they're a perfect example of small businesses that need a helping hand. So, for us, we're not even around, it kind of helps us to feel good. Or it makes us feel good, I should say, to help another small business like them. We're giving them the opportunity to use our space. I'm not even there. You know what I mean? They come in, they use our space. We trust them. They do a great job. And that's what we need to work with the small businesses to really develop them. They have the potential. They have a real potential to grow their business. It's just the two of them now, but they're going to add somebody else. They'll add somebody else. Next thing you know, they won't have to rent space from us. They're going to have their own place. And this is how communities grow, is through the hard work of people just like Chet and Amy.
I'm sorry. So Chuck Nelson, City Council, would be someone that you were impressed with, that you are going to be voting.
Yes, I think that he's a bright guy that kind of gets it.
Sydney, same question to you that Adam asked earlier. If you could vote for, you could pick the office, pick the candidate. Who are you voting for? Who is someone that you're going to be voting for in the upcoming primaries?
Yeah, so I think there are a lot of great candidates out there. I think that, there's like the county executive race. I'm really excited about Dr. Titus running. For county council. Yeah, for county council, Angela is great. I think that Lydia Lathe is great.
Friend of the program.
When it comes, what is it?
Out in Edinburgh, Lydia from Mount Edinburgh. She was on the show last week. Friend of the show.
Yep.
Smart gal, very good with community relations, understands, trauma, and how to have trauma-informed policies, and as well as accessibility.
And Tyler does too, for that matter.
Yes, yeah, Tyler does. And so somebody else I'm excited about, Erie School District School Board. There are several folks who I'm excited about, and I know we can vote for a lot. But Jay Brenneman, Leah Tate, excited about both of them a lot. I think Zachariah, he was in the comments earlier. Yep. And Depend is also running. I think that them being new Americans and having the experiences that they have, especially knowing that there are so many kids from our immigrant community, would be really great representation for that community. I know that there are a few other folks who are running, but I believe we can only vote for 4 people. Let's see. I know Lauren's running as well. I think she's another option for folks with
Lauren
her.
Gillespie, friend of the program.
Yeah, with her experience. But again, you got to kind of whittle down from all those options who you can vote for. So people need to like do their own research and see what candidates fit them the best. But then you have city council, and I think that the folks running for city council, it's going to be really hard for people to make a decision because the Dems on that ticket are great. And I think that one of the reasons that I'm interested in talking about this is that if I do win the primary for mayor, these are folks that I'm going to want to work with. I don't want to just work with people inside the mayor's administration, but I want to work with people I want to work with on city council. I want people I want to work with on school board. I want people I want to work with in the county offices as well, so that we can strengthen each other, be on the same page, and progress Erie forward. So it is important to me to know who is running and have a better understanding of, what each person will do so that I can see how they'll align with what I want to do as well.
So that everybody's rowing in the same direction.
Everybody's rowing in the same direction. That makes me think of a childhood book I have. They have like nursery rhymes, and one is row, row, row your boat, and there's a picture of like 3 hippos in a boat with a little mouse coxswain. And so you need that like direction, you need that teamwork. Even if you're switching who's the coxswain and given the directions, you need everybody, like you said, rowing in the same direction.
So is this Sydney Zimmermann for mouse coxswain?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Mouse coxswain 2021. Here for it. So parting remarks, you guys. Tom Spagel, any last remarks for the people of the world?
Well, I appreciate both of you hosts for hosting us, and certainly Sydney for being part of this process. I really wish we could do more of these. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we went down to Perry Square and we just sat out and had a 2-hour conversation in front of people, and they have these discussions. I'm not saying that I know all the answers. I think that I have a lot of great ideas. I think the city has a lot of great ideas.
I'm free. I have mics. I'm free. I have mics.
Adam and I would totally be moderators.
Yep. Well, how's your Tuesday?
Shit, I'll do it. I can't have to be more professional. Sorry about that. I'm gonna go Tuesday. I'll put you in.
All right.
Oh, let's go. Too easy. I think that we should do this. And this is, you call it old school, but it works. It's effective. How about we talk to the people that vote for us? This is why we're going back and forth with a debate. Debates are a great way for us to have a professional discourse of our ideas. And now, Sydney and I are going to be speaking in a forum that is not at all really a debate per se. And it's just because Joe is not a competent person speaking, he doesn't know the answers. And we need to be able to have the voters, judge Sydney, judge me, and let's see what we really have to offer to them. So that's one of the things that I'd love to do. I do think that I'm absolutely qualified. And again, just as Sydney says, it's a name recognition thing. It's a money thing. Joe has at least $120,000. That's a crazy amount of money, in my opinion, to run. And he said he's going to spend all of that money. So I would say that I'm absolutely a better, more qualified person running. But it's in some cases it's a popularity game. So please, vote for me. As I will lead the city in the right direction. I've said to people before, I have enough friends. I don't need any more friends. And I know, Garrett, if you pay attention to school board, people say that I'm a voice of reason. I don't back away from the hard issues, and I make solid, informed decisions. I'll do the same thing for the city council. I'm sorry, for the city, working with the city council. And I think, leadership goes a long way. Just because Joe's a nice guy doesn't mean he's an effective leader. We all know that Renee's running the city. That's no secret. When's the last time Joe been to work? 14 months ago? You have to be there. You have to be involved. you can't delegate everything down to your chief of staff. I'm an involved type of guy. I have energy. I have the willpower. I will get the work done. So please vote for me.
One last question here before I go to Sydney for her final comments. If by chance, Tom, you don't win the primary, will you support Mayor Schember in his reelection?
Well, what was the question? I didn't hear that.
If you don't win the primary, will you throw your support behind Mayor Schember running for mayor?
Well, he's opposed at that point. There isn't a Republican running. So you have a choice. There isn't a Republican running.
Oh, there we go. All right, then. Well, then I withdraw that question. Your Honor. I withdraw that question. Mm-hmm. Sydney, your final comments.
Well, Garrett, I don't know if I like the way you posed that last question, because that assumes that Schember wins over me, and we don't know what's going to happen.
We're going to get the same question, but now I realize that was a silly question. But go ahead.
And actually, there is a gal who's running as the write-in for the Republican ticket, so we'll see how she does come May 18th as well. A lot to shake out after this primary.
Yes.
But kind of going back to the idea of a debate. I was recently made aware that there is a small business that is putting some feelers out about still having a debate. Mr. Spagel, I don't know if your camp has responded to that yet. Last I heard, no candidates had responded, but if it is a possibility to get a debate in before the 18th, I'm all for it. I say yes to a debate, but normally they're put on by a third party so that the campaigns aren't driving the questions or the moderator. So if that can get worked out by a third party, I'm more than happy to go ahead and participate.
Hi, have you met me? I'm a third party. Have their people call
Adam.
our people.
He is a moderator.
Let me know, because
I don't know who these people are, but Dr. Skindell and myself, we would be more than happy, I'm sure. We will host the drunken debate in a heartbeat.
I mean, I'm no Scott Bremner, but I can moderate a debate. I've done those before.
How quickly can you grow a mustache?
Like a couple days.
Okay.
I'm Italian, so I can grow a
mustache. You're on mustache. You're on mustache duty.
That question was for me because I could grow a mustache in a couple of days.
Yeah. All right.
Hey, give me a Sharpie marker. I got one right here. So yeah, I say yes to debate. I'm happy to participate in one. But when it comes to community discussions, our campaign has, except for one Sunday where I needed a mental health day, we've been already having open forums on Facebook Live. Today was Mother's Day, so we didn't get much participation. Everybody was out celebrating their mothers, right? But Garrett, Adam, even Tom, you're welcome to attend our last one before the primary coming up, because I do think it's important to have community discussions to allow for people to come in and voice their concerns. And I think at first it's kind of one of those muscles that people haven't used yet, when you first come back to school from summer break, and maybe you're not in the routine of raising your hand and feeling comfortable in your class with your new teacher or what have you. But I think that the more that we start to try to hold these conversation spaces, the more people will, engage in them and feel more confident in sharing their piece, especially if they start seeing, their feedback being utilized. So invitation to everybody, Sundays with Sydney, 2 p.m., Facebook Live. If you miss it, it's recorded. It's on the Facebook, so you can still leave a comment or look at the comments that were there previously, and ask your own questions a little bit later on. But I'd be happy to have folks come in, be part of those discussions, because I do think it's really important to have space, hold space, so that people can, share their input, put their 2 cents in. Because when we get enough 2 cents, we become richer in our wisdom and our understanding of our community.
We get enough 2 cents and we got dollar bills, y'all.
Dollar bills, y'all. Exactly. So with my closing, I just want to make sure that folks know that they have an option on the ballot that will represent their ideals, that will work to bring tangible, practical solutions to the issues that we're having. And quite frankly, I'm a leader who understands that I don't have all the answers, but I'm lucky enough to have a community where those answers can be found, and we can really, cultivate some great solutions from the creativity and the knowledge that we have in our community already.
Excellent.
So vote for me on May 18th. Make sure your friends get there.
Good stuff, guys.
Sydney Zimmermann, thank you very much for joining us. Tom Spagel, thank you very much for joining Adam and I here in the Social Distancing Variety Hour mayoral primary extravaganza.
Dr. Skindell, should we put the record on and then we'll come back and say goodnight to the people?
Let's put the record on. Then we'll come back. We'll say goodnight. And then if you can cue up the wonderful, fabulous.
Oh, I got it.
Social Distancing Variety Hour. Friends of Social Distancing Variety
Tom Spagel,
Hour.
Sydney Zimmermann. Thank you guys for joining us. Love you both.
Good night, guys.
Thank you for having me.
Enjoy the show.
Thank you, guys. Social Distancing Variety Hour.
Social Distancing Variety Hour. Shout out to Tom Spagel. Shout out to Sydney Zimmermann. Our record tonight, by the way, is Vibration by the Ryan Jewell Quintet on Two Rooms Records out of Detroit, Michigan. Highly recommended. Great free-ish jazz kind of record. Ryan Jewell, great player.
Yes, indeed. Yes,
Everybody else on it, great players as well.
Thanks for having me again, Adam. That was
most definitely.
The mayoral primary extravaganza, I think, was a pretty good success. Everybody got a lot of time.
We got another free-form extravaganza next week. We're not entirely sure yet who's going to be a part of it. We got some invites out. I got some invites that I re-invited over the course of the show. Like, hey, you going to come join next week? So, there's some people who came up in conversation over the course of the show tonight that we're hoping to have involved next week.
Yes.
We're going to talk some school board, and I know, Dr. Skindell, I know that you are down to talk some school board.
Yeah, I'll have some good questions.
Yeah, you got some vested interest in that, and
indeed,
vested interest is always good.
it does help. It does help a little bit.
So we'll talk some school board. We'll talk some city council, probably, maybe, likely. We might talk some sheriff if they're feeling brave. You know, they've nibbled at the bait. They've been like,
That's a good way to put it. We'll see. Yeah, just little nibbles. They took the worm off the
little
hook.
nibbles. They took the worm off the hook. This is me putting my worm back on the hook.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah,
there you go. Back on the hook.
We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, so we'll see if any of the candidates for sheriff want to talk. You know, there's been a couple other people.
They've got some explaining to do. They've got some explaining to do when they do, though. If they do.
Oh, that one guy especially has some explaining to do, and he sent me his number, and was like, "Hey, here's my number." So, yeah, maybe we'll get that one guy involved in the show next week. But yeah, I'm definitely hoping to have that one guy and that other guy, and hopefully that third guy who couldn't make that other show when we talked to some of the people that he's running against. And I'm just talking about all these people in abstracts right now because it's more fun. And because it makes it cryptic. And that's also more fun.
Indeed.
But yeah, we're going to have one more show. There's one more Sunday between now and the primaries on the
primary day.
18th.
It is the 18th, May 18th.
Tuesday the 18th. So we got one more opportunity to talk to people who are running for things. So people who are running for things, if you're out there watching, and if you've not had the opportunity to talk to us yet this primary season, now is your chance.
Last chance.
Last chance.
Your last chance.
Last chance to dance. Drop into the DMs. Get at us. You know where to find us. So let's talk next week. Dr. Skindell, love you very much, my friend. Thank you for being with us again. Thank you for your help.
Always thank you for having me.
Let's leave the people with this. This seems like a good thing to leave the people with. And in the meantime, we'll see you next week. Social Distancing Variety Hour. Go wash your hands. Wear your mask.
Wear a mask. Get vaccinated.
Yep. Do all those things. Erie.
In 1989, when the Berlin Wall fell, we pretended to be there. In 1963, when Martin Luther King Jr. marched for freedom, we pretended to be there. Throughout history, in good times and bad, times of turmoil and strife, joy and victory, we have always pretended to be by your side. Social Distancing Variety Hour. Pretending to be there for you. Paid for by friends of Social Distancing Variety Hour.